Chapter 3660. Gu Fei had subdued an ancestor of the Black Fire Clan, Flamelord, as well as the Black Fire Clan's guardian beast, the Black Flame Giant Dragon. Subduing these two fellows was equivalent to subduing half of the Black Fire Clan. At this moment, Flamelord put away the Black Fire killing formation, and Gu Fei and the others appeared in the void. What's going on? Seeing Gu Fei and the others suddenly appear, the experts of the northern region of South Continent who were watching the battle from afar were extremely shocked. These fellows were fighting to the death just now. What was going on? Did they stop fighting? It's him. The Black Fire Clan is in trouble. So it's him. When some of the old antiques of the northern region of South Continent saw Gu Fei, they immediately understood that the Black Fire Clan was in trouble. Even the overlord of South Continent had been subdued by him. Would the Black Fire Clan be an exception? At this moment, countless figures appeared in the distant sky. A terrifying murderous aura spread from the distant sky, which shocked everyone. It was a huge battle formation. Every soldier wore black heavy armor, held a spear in their hands, and wore a helmet on their heads. Their murderous aura soared into the sky. The leader was also wearing black heavy armor. He was tall and mighty, and his domineering aura was overflowing. It's Nan Batian. He actually came in person. Someone exclaimed. The person who came was Nan Batian. He directly brought 100,000 tyrant soldiers to support Shimon Ejian. However, when Nan Batian saw Gu Fei, he was taken aback. Greetings, Master. Nan Batian did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly went forward. After all, his life was in the hands of Gu Fei. If Gu Fei wanted to kill him, he would not even need to lift a finger. He could do it with just a thought. Gu Fei had planted a restrictive spell on Nan Batian and the others, so he was not afraid of their retaliation at all. One had to know that Gu Fei had obtained quite a number of life-saving secret arts. The most impressive was the Ascension secret art, one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Ascension and rebirth. Even if one's spirit was shattered, they could be reborn. Secondly, it was the death substitution secret technique that he had recently obtained from an ancestor of the Lin family in the primogenitor realm. This secret technique was a secret technique that allowed him to avoid death at the lowest cost. The second was the Earth Spirit Clan's Golden Cicada secret technique, which allowed the golden silkworm to shed its shell and become immortal. With these 3 life-saving secret techniques, it could be said that even an extreme-grade sovereign might not be able to kill Gu Fei if he personally made a move. Gu Fei just nodded and said, "You can leave first." Yes, Master. Although Nan Batian was extremely domineering, in front of Gu Fei, he seemed to have turned into a well-behaved cat. After hearing Gu Fei's words, he didn't even dare to let out a fart and hurriedly retreated to the side. His 100,000 tyrant tribe soldiers also retreated to the side and quietly waited for Gu Fei's orders. Make a trip there. If you surrender, you can live. If you resist, all of you will be killed. Gu Fei said to Yang Zun. What? Yang Zun was instantly shocked. If they resisted, all of them would be killed. Was this the final ultimatum? There's no room for negotiation. What are you waiting for? Didn't you hear what my master said? Shimon Ejian stared at Yang Zun and said coldly. Yes, Master. Yang Zun had no choice but to accept the order and directly disappeared into the void. What? You want us to surrender? Soon, deep in the Black Fire mountain range, a roar was heard from a cave that absorbed the Taiyin Black Fire essence chi. This is too much. We will fight to the death. Someone in the cave roared angrily. That's right. Even if Gu Fei is more powerful than Nan Batian of the tyrants, so what? Nan Batian can't do anything to us. What can this Gu Fei do to us? Someone said arrogantly. Sigh. This time, it might be different. An old voice was heard. Old ancestor. Exclamations could be heard from the cave. Old ancestor, why did you come out? A voice was heard. I'm going to meet that Gu Fei. The old voice was heard again. What? The black flame holy ground instantly quietened down. No one spoke. The old ancestor was actually going to take action personally. This was the first time in 1,000 years. To be precise, the old ancestor had not taken action for close to 2,000 years. Even when Nan Batian personally led the tyrants to attack Blackfire City 500 years ago and almost conquered Blackfire City, the old ancestor did not take action. Soon, a white-haired old man walked out of the Black Flame Cave. The Black Flame Cave was the holy ground of the Blackfire clan. Only old ancestor-level beings were qualified to enter the cave to cultivate. There was a big secret hidden in the Black Flame Cave. The existence of the Blackfire clan might be to protect this secret in the Black Flame Cave. In less than an hour, Yang Zun returned. However, an old man followed behind Yang Zun and came to the opposite side of Ji Yufei. What's going on? Shimon Yijian and the rest were surprised, especially Nan Batian. He could sense a dangerous aura from this old man. At first glance, this old man looked like an ordinary mortal. There was nothing special about him. He was skinny and had a head of white hair. His face was full of wrinkles and he looked like an old man. However, an ordinary mortal would definitely not be able to fly in the air. This old man was not simple. His cultivation had already reached the highest realm of return to origin. Even Ji Yufei was a little surprised to see this old man. He used his martial path heavenly eye to see that this old man was not ordinary. You are Ji Yufei? The old man behind Yang Zun looked at Ji Yufei the moment he stepped forward. His voice was very old. Who are you? Ji Yufei did not deny it. I can make decisions for everything in the Blackfire clan. The old man said indifferently. You are, which legendary ancestor of the Blackfire clan are you? Nan Batian said hesitantly as he stared at this old man. The old man did not speak, but those who heard Nan Batian's words were shocked, especially those who were watching from afar. The ancestor of the Blackfire clan is here. Someone's hand trembled and dropped his melon. I didn't expect this old man to still be alive. Some of the old antiques in the northern part of the South Continent did not look so good. You want my clan to submit to you with just one sentence. That's too much of a joke. The old man looked at Ji Yufei with his turbid eyes and said indifferently. Surrender or not? Hurry up and choose. Shimon Yijian said to the old man impatiently. Back off. Ji Yufei frowned. Shimon Yijian was a little impulsive, which was a big taboo for cultivators. One should know that impulsiveness was the devil. One could fall into it if one was not careful. This old man was a senior after all. One must be polite to seniors. Respecting the old and loving the young was a virtue. Old man, what do you think? Ji Yufei looked at the old man calmly and said. Nothing much. I just want to exchange a few moves with you. Chapter 3661. Ji Yufei and Nan Batian fought their way to the Black Flame City. The entire Black Flame clan was extremely nervous. Even the higher-ups of the Black Flame clan who were cultivating in the Black Flame sacred ground were alarmed. Moreover, the news that the Flame Reverend brought back shocked the patriarchs of the Black Flame clan in the Black Flame Sanctuary. The Black Flame giant dragon had actually been subdued by Ji Yufei. How could this be? The amount of information was too shocking. Thus, the legendary ancestor of the Blackfire clan who was said to have fallen jumped out. He wanted to meet Ji Yufei. Yang Zun had no choice but to bring his ancestor back to meet Ji Yufei. You can even subdue the Black Flame giant dragon. It would be a pity if I don't spar with you. The old man looked at Ji Yufei calmly, but there was a glint in his eyes. Don't kill a chicken with a butcher's knife. Master, let me do it. Nan Batian walked forward as a powerful battle intent erupted from his body. The space around him rippled like water due to the mighty and domineering power from his body. Little guy, you're not qualified. The old man looked at Nan Batian and shook his head. What did you say? Nan Batian was furious. How dare you say that I'm not qualified? I was once the strongest in the South Continent. How could I not be qualified to fight with this old man? He was furious and unconvinced. Unconvinced? I specialize in dealing with unconvinced people. Come, let me teach you how to behave. The old man waved at Nan Batian and said. You, Nan Batian was furious. No one had ever dared to speak to him like this. Even the guy from the Lin family in the ancestor world had to be polite to him. Ji Fei did not speak. He wanted to see the old man's strength. Since he was the ancestor of the Black Flame clan, he must be very powerful. The existence of the ancestor level was definitely the strongest in the cultivation world. For example, the 4 ancestors of the Earth Spirit clan were all quasi-supremes. The first ancestor of the Earth Spirit clan was once an extreme supreme. Although his cultivation had dropped, he was still powerful and terrifying. How dare you take advantage of your seniority in front of me? Eat my fist. Nan Batian roared angrily and threw a punch at the Black Flame ancestor. The extremely domineering fist force exploded and the void in front of his fist suddenly collapsed. Rumble, Nan Batian's fist force fused with the destructive power of the void, turning into a terrifying torrent of destruction that drowned the Black Flame primogenitor in the torrent. What? Shimon Ejian and the Black Flame colossal dragon were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. This Nan Batian had attacked without saying a single word. The battle prowess he had displayed was astonishing. The former number 1 expert of the South Continent was indeed worthy of his reputation. However, it was a pity that he encountered Ji Fei. Hence, this South Continent's Batian was unlucky. Just when everyone thought that the progenitor of the Black Fire clan was in trouble, a figure emerged from the torrent of destruction. The destructive power actually passed through the figure's body. The figure seemed to be made of air, completely unaffected by the force. What's going on? Seeing this, Nan Batian could not help but be moved. Lifeless and indestructible, neither alive nor dead. The voice of the Black Flame ancestor rang out. He walked up to Nan Batian as if he was taking a stroll in the park and pointed his finger. Nan Batian suddenly found himself unable to move. He could only watch as the other party's finger touched his forehead. Roar! Nan Batian let out a furious roar, and his entire body exploded. However, in the next moment, the blood mist instantly gathered together, and Nan Batian's figure appeared in the void hundreds of feet away. He looked at the seemingly harmless old man in front of him in horror. Just now, when his divine body exploded, he felt that his life was in danger. Does this guy really have the ability to kill me? Nan Batian thought. Little guy, are you convinced? The Black Flame ancestor said to Nan Batian with a smile. Nan Batian was shocked and angry, but he did not know what to say at that moment. All right, you can go back. I'll play with the old man. Ji Fei glanced at Nan Batian before turning his gaze to the Black Flame ancestor. The secret skill that the old man had just displayed was indeed shocking. Did I see wrongly just now? Was that the legendary lifeless and indestructible art? An old antique from the north region of the South Continent said in shock. What? Lifeless and indestructible art? How is that possible? Hasn't this mysterious skill been lost for countless years? Ever since the Great War of Gods and Demons, this mysterious skill has disappeared. The lifeless and indestructible art was a supreme mysterious skill created by a supreme martial artist from the South Continent of the ancestral god realm. It was said that after cultivating this mysterious skill, one would be lifeless and immortal. Interesting. Ji Fei rubbed his nose and took a step forward. Please. Ji Fei said politely to the Black Flame ancestor. You're not bad, little guy. The Black Flame ancestor smiled, and the wrinkles on his face deepened. The Black Flame ancestor was so old that all his teeth had fallen off, but no one dared to underestimate him. Swoosh. After saying that, the Black Flame primogenitor disappeared into the void. Boom. In the next moment, an extremely powerful force exploded from Ji Fei's body, and the void around him exploded. This was a brilliant move. No matter which direction the Black Flame ancestor attacked from, it was useless. As expected, a figure fell out of the void. Swoosh. With a wave of his hand, Ji Fei sent a destructive sword light towards the figure at an extremely fast speed. Clang. The sword light landed on the figure, and the sound of metal colliding could be heard. The figure was sent flying by Ji Fei's sword. In the next moment, an extremely sharp sword light rushed out from the figure, tearing through the void, and instantly slashed at Ji Fei. Chaotic universe. Ji Fei roared, and a wave of power surged from his body. The sharp sword light that was slashing down were all reversed, and slashed at the black flame ancestor. The black flame ancestor was taken aback, but his divine body instantly became like air. The reversed sword light passed through his body, and did not hurt him at all. This secret skill is amazing. Shimon Ejian saw this and his jaw dropped, and he was completely dumbfounded. Lifeless and indestructible, his invincible. The black flame dragon, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "Invincible? What do you take my master for?" Chapter 3662. Since the ancestor of the Black Fire clan wanted to exchange a few blows with Ji Yufei was more than happy to oblige. Hence, the two super experts made their moves. At this moment, the countless sword lights that shot out from the ancestor of the Black Fire clan were reversed by Ji Yufei's chaotic secret skill, and all of them pierced through the ancestor of the Black Fire clan. What? The ancestor of the Black Fire clan was taken aback. The next moment, the countless sword lights pierced through the ancestor of the Black Fire clan as though they were passing through a layer of air. There was no resistance at all. This was the secret skill that the ancestor of the Black Fire clan cultivated, the lifeless scripture. It was as though his entire body had turned into nothingness. Even Ji Yufei could not sense his existence at this moment. What an amazing secret skill! Ji Yufei could not help but be moved. Buzz! In the next moment, he directly displayed the 9 heaven-punishing swords. 9 immortal sword lights emitted a terrifying murderous aura as they rushed out of his body. Swoosh! The 9 sword lights pierced through the figure of the ancestor of the Black Fire clan. The figure of the ancestor of the Black Fire clan immediately dimmed as though it was about to dissipate into the void. However, in the next moment, the figure of the ancestor of the Black Fire clan became solid again. This swordsmanship! The ancestor of the Black Fire clan looked at Ji Yufei in shock. The 9 murderous sword lights had impacted him greatly and blood was oozing out from where he was hit. However, not a single wound could be seen on his body. Even his clothes were not cut by Ji Yufei's sword light. How about it? Do you want another 2 moves? Ji Yufei smiled at the old man opposite him. At this moment, the 9 sword lights had already flown back to him and entered his body. The ancestor of the Black Fire clan did not speak. He stared at Ji Yufei for a while and said, "The Black Fire clan is willing to submit. A wise man submits to circumstances." "Old man, you're really smart." Nan Batian looked at the Black Flame progenitor and sighed. This progenitor of the Black Flame tribe was really astute. He could see things much further than ordinary people. The Black Fire ancestor knew that he could not stop Ji Yufei. Even though he was not afraid of Ji Yufei, he had the entire Black Fire tribe behind him. He could escape if he could not defeat Ji Yufei, but the Black Fire tribe could not. Therefore, choosing to submit to Ji Yufei would allow the Black Fire clan to not lose a single soldier and preserve the Black Fire clan's strength to the maximum. When Nan Batian thought of how his elite army was almost crippled by Kang Q's God Race army, and how countless divine generals and divine soldiers had fallen, he felt a heartache and his heart was bleeding. The Black Flame progenitor glanced at Nan Batian but did not say anything. "Please." Black Flame elder said to Ji Yufei, then stepped aside. He wanted to invite Ji Yufei into Black Flame City. At this moment, countless figures appeared in Black Flame City. They were all members of the Black Fire tribe. The members of the Black Fire tribe seemed to have appeared out of thin air. There's a void formation inside. Ji Yufei's eyes were sharp and he immediately saw through the situation of Black Flame City. "Daoist friend, you are indeed impressive." The Black Flame ancestor heard Ji Yufei's words and hurriedly said, "You flatter me." Ji Yufei smiled. At this moment, the Black Flame City's Great City Defense Formation had stopped operating. The Black Flame ancestor invited Ji Yufei into the City Lord's residence. The patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe were waiting in the main hall of the City Lord's residence. "Greetings, Lord Ancestor." A dozen patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe hurriedly bowed to the Black Flame ancestor. The Black Flame ancestor ignored them and walked to the throne in the middle of the hall with Ji Yufei. He said to Ji Yufei, "Daoist friend, please take a seat." Without hesitation, Ji Yufei went up to the throne and sat down. Seeing this, the dozen patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the hall were dumbfounded. What was the Lord Ancestor up to? Could it be? The patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe were not fools. They quickly thought of a very serious possibility, something that they could not accept. After seeing Jiu Fei sit on the throne, the Black Flame Ancestor turned around and glanced at the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the hall. From now on, Daoist friend Jiu Fei is your master. You must obey his orders unconditionally. The Black Flame Ancestor said coldly. What? The patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the hall were all stunned. They looked at the Lord Ancestor as though they had turned into statues. Lord Ancestor, one of the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe, wanted to say something, but no words came out after he opened his mouth. Daoist friend Jiu, I'll leave them to you. Do as you please. With that, the Black Flame Ancestor took a step forward and disappeared into the void. He had left just like that. The patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the hall were once again dumbfounded. Had they been abandoned by their Lord Ancestor? This old man is playing this trick. In the hall, Nan Batian and the rest who had been watching this scene couldn't help but admire the Black Flame Ancestor. It seemed like the Black Flame Ancestor had abandoned the people in the hall, but he was actually retreating in order to advance. This way, Jiu Fei would be too embarrassed to attack the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe. This guy is really good at playing tricks. Jiu Fei thought to himself. However, any tricks were trash in front of him. Trying to trick him? Dream on. Suddenly, Jiu Fei smiled and made a hand seal with both hands. A dozen hand seals rushed out from his hands and entered the bodies of the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the hall. The patriarchs of the Black Fire clan were shocked. They quickly looked inside themselves, but the handprint that had entered their bodies had disappeared. What was that? What did you do to us? The leading old ancestor looked at Jiu Fei, who was sitting on the throne, in horror. His voice was trembling. Jiu Fei would definitely not attack them for no reason. It's nothing. Your lives are in my hands. Jiu Fei said nonchalantly. What? When the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the hall heard Jiu Fei's words, their hair stood on end. You planted a forbidden technique on us? A tall patriarch of the Black Flame clan who looked like a black iron tower was enraged. How can you do this? What right do you have to control our lives? The black man glared at Jiu Fei on the throne and roared. Yang Ba, shut up. Yang Zun, who was standing beside Jiu Fei, roared angrily at the black man below. He then turned around and bowed to Jiu Fei. Please forgive Yang Ba's rudeness, master. I will teach him a good lesson. Who else is unconvinced? Step forward. Jiu Fei said calmly, but there was a hint of murderous intent in his tone. Oh no. Chapter 3663. Step forward if you're not convinced. Jiu Fei's lazy voice rang out in the main hall of the City Lord's residence in Blackfire City. What? All the patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe were enraged. However, some of them did not dare to express their anger. However, those with fiery temperament were different. Of course, there were a few sly fellows among the patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe. Seeing that the situation was getting out of hand, they quietly stood to the side and watched coldly without saying a word. I'm not convinced. So what? A tall and skinny guy stepped forward and walked to the side of the Black Flame ancestor named Yang Ba. He glared at Jiu Fei, who was sitting on the throne. Me too. Count me in. I'm not convinced. So what? Other than the tall and skinny fellow, another 3 patriarchs stepped forward. They did not believe that Jiu Fei would dare to kill them. Including Yang Zun, there were a total of 16 patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the main hall. At this moment, 5 patriarchs stepped forward. Other than Yang Zun, the remaining 10 patriarchs remained silent. What a bunch of idiots. You still can't tell. How sad. Nan Batian glanced at the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe in the main hall and said disdainfully, "Who are you calling idiots? Do it again if you dare." All the patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe turned around and glared at Nan Batian. Yang Ba, in particular, wanted to rush over and beat Nan Batian up. I'm talking about you. So what? Nan Batian shouted at Yang Ba. I'm going to kill you. Yang Ba was enraged and was about to attack. However, just as Yang Ba took a step forward, there was a loud bang. Without any warning, Yang Ba's divine body suddenly exploded and turned into a mist of blood. The other 4 patriarchs of the Black Fire tribe standing beside him were also covered in blood. What? Everyone in the main hall was stunned. No one had expected such a thing to happen. An extremely powerful patriarch of the Black Fire tribe had been killed just like that. At this moment, Yang Zun, who was standing beside the throne, was sweating profusely. Idiot! You're courting death. You can't blame anyone else. Yang Zun thought to himself. At this moment, he didn't dare to speak to Ji Yufei anymore. This master of his would kill anyone he didn't like. It was then that the Black Flame patriarchs in the hall recalled what Ji Yufei had said. In particular, the 4 Black Flame patriarchs who had jumped out to fight against Ji Yufei turned pale with fright. They could still feel the warmth of the blood that had splashed onto their bodies. Pa! Ji Yufei, who was sitting on the throne, suddenly snapped his fingers. Then, with a bang, the tall and thin Black Flame ancestor exploded. Both his body and soul were destroyed. Master, please be merciful. Yang Zun hurriedly knelt down and said fearfully. All the Black Flame patriarchs in the hall looked at Ji Yufei, who was sitting on the throne, in horror. If they want to die, I can't do anything about it. Ji Yufei said. Pa! With another snap of his fingers, another patriarch of the Black Fire clan was turned into a mist of blood without any suspense. Out of the 5 Black Flame patriarchs who had stood up to fight against Ji Yufei, 2 of them died in an instant. This made the remaining 3 Black Flame patriarchs extremely frightened. At this moment, they realized that Ji Yufei was indeed a ruthless character. Even their Lord Ancestor couldn't save them now. This Ji Yufei, at this moment, an old man stood at the peak of a mountain outside Blackfire City. This old man was looking in the direction of the city lord's residence. He was the Black Flame patriarch of the Black Flame tribe who had just left Blackfire City. At this moment, the Black Flame patriarch realized that he had miscalculated. He had tried to trick Ji Yufei, but Ji Yufei didn't play by the rules. Just now, he had already said that he would let Ji Yufei deal with those guys. Therefore, it was not appropriate for the Black Flame primogenitor to save Yang Ba and the others. Pa! Another snap was heard in the hall of the city lord's residence. Then, one of the Black Flame patriarchs was destroyed and became a thing of the past. Master, spare us. The remaining 2 Black Flame patriarchs, who were resisting Ji Yufei, knelt down and kowtowed to Ji Yufei. Their hesitation and extreme fear caused their bodies to tremble. When their lives were threatened, even a patriarch would have to beg for mercy. At times like this, dignity and what not could be thrown away. Hehe, now you know how to call me master. Nan Batian looked disdainfully at the 2 Black Flame patriarchs who were kneeling in front of Ji Yufei. Master, I'm just a fart. Please let me go. A short, dark-skinned patriarch of the Black Flame tribe pleaded. How dare you ask master to fart? You deserve to die. Nan Batian roared with righteous indignation. This. I don't dare ask master to fart. The Black Flame patriarch shook his head hurriedly. You want to live? Very well, I'll give you a chance. As Ji Yufei spoke, he took out a palm-sized object from his body. Then, the object flew up from his hand and expanded rapidly. The object floated in the hall. Everyone saw that it was a fighting platform. Only one of you can live. Go up. We'll know who will live and who will die after a battle. Ji Yufei looked indifferently at the 2 guys who were kneeling at his feet. The skinny Yang Tian and the fat Yang Qi looked at each other. They were both surprised and delighted. Yang Tian rushed up to the fighting platform, followed by Yang Qi. Although this battle stage looked small on the outside, it was actually very big on the inside. The instant Yang Qi and Yang Tian entered the battle stage, their figures shrunk. Time to watch the show, haha. Nan Batian got a stool from somewhere and sat on it, watching the battle in the fighting platform with great interest. The Black Flame Dragon did not enter the hall but hovered in the air outside. At this moment, the 2 experts were fighting with no regard for their own lives. This was a matter of life and death, and it was not a joke. It had to be said that the two Black Flame patriarchs of the Black Flame tribe were really strong. The entire fighting platform shook and powerful energy waves spread out from the fighting platform, causing the void around the fighting platform to tremble. Bam! Boom! A dull collision sound came from the fighting platform. The two experts wanted to live. As long as they could live, no one would be willing to die. Chapter 3664. Genius in a second. Remember, love, go away. The web provides you with exciting novels to read. A battle platform floated above the main hall of the Blackfire City Governor's mansion. Two figures were moving rapidly on the battle platform, fighting with all their might, each trying to kill the other. What was even more shocking was that both of them came from the same clan and were patriarch-level existences of the Blackfire clan. But now, both of them seemed to have become mortal enemies and wanted to kill each other. In the main hall, the other ancestors of the Blackfire clan did not speak. They quietly watched the battle on the battle platform. Some of them had complicated expressions. But in order to survive, no one dared to step forward. One should know that their lives could be ended with a snap of Gu Fei's fingers. If Gu Fei wanted to kill them, he didn't even need to lift a finger. At this time, on a mountain peak outside of the Blackfire City, the ancestor of the Blackfire clan was filled with regret. He should not have played tricks with Gu Fei. Now, not only did he fail to trap Gu Fei, he was the one trapped instead. The ancestor of the Blackfire clan had no other choice. He did not want to see his descendants killed by Gu Fei, so he turned around and left. Boom! Bam! On the battle platform, the skinny Yang Tian and the fat Yang Qi were already bleeding. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they attacked each other crazily. Clang! A blade light rushed out from Yang Tian's body and fiercely slashed at Yang Qi's spear. The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing and rubbing gave everyone goosebumps. The ancestor of the Blackfire clan was at least a beginner quasi-supreme martial artist, but Yang Tian and Yang Qi were both in the intermediate quasi-supreme martial artist realm. Therefore, it would not be easy for them to determine the winner. Most importantly, they were too familiar with each other. Both of them knew each other's trump cards. In this way, it would be even more difficult to determine the victor. Master, can you let them atone for their crimes? At this time, the Flame Lord, who was standing beside the throne, suddenly asked Gu Fei. Atone for their crimes? How are you going to redeem yourself? Gu Fei glanced at Yang Zun and said indifferently. Sometimes, it felt good to act tough. Yang Zun thought about it and said, Master, there are still many people in the South Continent who are unwilling to submit. Let's send the two of them to take care of those people. If the two of them were to die just like that, it would not be worth it. Gu Fei pondered for a moment. These two fellas were quasi-supremes after all. Anyway, their life and death were in his hands. Moreover, he had killed the chicken to warn the monkey just now. This suggestion of Flame Reverend was really not bad. All right, let's do that. Gu Fei nodded his head. With a wave of his hand, Yang Qi and Yang Tian, who were fighting on the stage, immediately flew out. With a wave of his hand, the battle platform that was suspended in the void immediately shrank and flew back into his hand. Yang Tian and Yang Qi directly fell to the ground. They were still in a daze as they looked at Gu Fei, who was sitting on the throne. Master is being merciful and has decided to spare your lives. Yang Zun stared at the two fellas on the ground and said coldly, Thank you, Master, for sparing our lives. Thank you, Master, for sparing our lives. Yang Tian and Yang Qi were surprised and happy. They quickly kowtowed to Gu Fei in fear, knocking their foreheads on the ground. However, you can be spared from death, but not punishment. Master wants you to conquer the South Continent and conquer all those who are unwilling to submit. Do you have any objections? Yang Zun said coldly. No objections, no objections. We will do as you say. Yang Tian and Yang Qi hurriedly said. Very good. Gu Fei nodded his head and said. He then looked at Shimon Yijian, who was standing below the throne, and said, Go with them and train. Yes, Master. Shimon Yijian turned around and bowed to Gu Fei and said. Scram, the two of you. With a wave of Gu Fei's hand, Yang Tian and Yang Qi, who were kneeling on the ground, were immediately blown out of the hall by a strong gust of wind. Not only were these two unlucky fellas sent flying out of the hall, they were also sent flying out of the governor's mansion and out of the city. Boom! Yang Tian and Yang Qi directly smashed into a mountain outside the governor's mansion. In the next moment, the entire mountain instantly exploded. Countless rocks flew in all directions and dust rose into the sky. What happened? All the Blackfire tribe members in the Heitian city were shocked by the scene outside the city. Yang Tian and Yang Qi crawled out of the rubble in a sorry state and returned to the Blackfire city. They arrived outside the hall of the governor's mansion and waited quietly. At this moment, the 10 patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe in the hall all became obedient and did not even dare to let out a fart. "You guys are just despicable." Nan Batian glanced at the patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe in the hall and said disdainfully. The 10 patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe glared at Nan Batian as if they wanted to eat him alive. Although they were afraid of Jiyu Fei, they were not afraid of Nan Batian. "What, you want to fight? I can kill you all with one hand," Nan Batian said domineeringly. "All right, that's it. Since the Blackfire tribe has already submitted to Master, then take out all your treasures and offer them to Master." Shimon Ejian glanced at the patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe in the hall and said, "I heard that the Blackfire tribe has a very rich collection. It seems that the Blackfire tribe has a special treasure vault for storing treasures," Nan Batian said. The patriarchs of the Blackfire clan had no choice but to watch as their clan's treasures were taken away. Even the vault was emptied. Sigh. The hearts of the patriarchs of the Blackfire tribe were bleeding. Subsequently, Jiyu Fei actually stayed in the Blackfire city. He was very interested in the secret that the Blackfire tribe was guarding. The next day, Yang Tian and Yang Qi led the troops of the Blackfire tribe into battle. In the southern continent, there were many people who were resisting Jiyu Fei. Many of them did not want to be enslaved. Thus, Kang Qiu and the others had been eliminating these resistance forces. With the addition of the Blackfire tribe, the resistance forces of the entire southern continent were gradually eliminated. Just as Yang Tian and Yang Qi led the troops of the Blackfire tribe into battle, Jiyu Fei, Nan Batian, Yang Zun, and the Black Flame Giant Dragon arrived at the sacred ground of the Blackfire tribe. "What's in here?" Jiyu Fei asked Yang Zun. "This. Master, I don't really know. Only one person knows the secret of the sacred ground, and that is the founding ancestor," Yang Zun hurriedly said. "What about you?" Jiyu Fei glanced at the Black Flame Giant Dragon and said. The Black Flame Giant Dragon transformed into a black-clothed middle-aged man and stood beside Jiyu Fei. When this guy heard Jiyu Fei's question, he could not help but be shocked. Then, he said something that shocked even Jiyu Fei. Chapter 3665. Jiyu Fei was very curious about the secrets of the Blackfire clan. Hence, on this day, he brought everyone to the sacred ground of the Blackfire clan. The sacred ground of the Blackfire clan was actually a cave that was spitting out black lunar flames. The cave was pitch black without any light. The aura of the extreme yin black flame surged out of the cave, forming a layer of nearly transparent ice around the entrance of the cave, sealing everything in ice. Jiyu Fei and the rest stood outside the cave and felt waves of cold air assaulting them. Even the weakest Yang Zun was covered in frost. Of course, Yang Zun cultivated the power of the black lunar flames. The power of the black lunar flames emanating from the sacred ground of the Blackfire clan did not harm him. Instead, it could increase his cultivation. This was also the reason why the patriarchs of the Blackfire clan chose to seclude themselves in the sacred ground. Cultivating in the sacred ground would yield twice the results with half the effort compared to anywhere else. "You know the secret of the Blackfire clan?" Jiyu Fei asked the Black Flame Giant Dragon. This fellow was born from the black lunar flames. What secret of the Blackfire clan was there that even he did not know about? This was simply an impossible matter. The middle-aged man who was the Black Flame Giant Dragon hesitated. "Speak," Yang Zun said to the middle-aged man who was the Black Flame Giant Dragon. "The Blackfire clan has an item that has been guarded for countless years. The middle-aged man who was the black flame giant dragon said with a solemn expression. It turned out that there was a mysterious item deep within the sacred ground of the Black Fire clan. This item had a mysterious origin and was only a corner of an incomplete item. Go in. After listening to the black flame giant dragon, Jiyu Fei took a step forward and entered the sacred ground of the Black Fire clan. No one dared to stand in his way. However, what made Jiyu Fei feel strange was that he did not see the Black Fire ancestor. He brought Yang Zun and the others into the deepest part of the cave. At the deepest part of the cave, there was an altar over 10 jong tall. This altar was very old, and it was built from a single boulder. Standing in front of this altar, Jiyu Fei felt an aura that seemed to come from the primordial era. But in the middle of the altar, there was a palm-sized object. This item seemed to be forged from some kind of unknown metal, and there were signs of fracture all around it. It was obvious that it was a small piece that had broken off from something else. This thing can be used to travel to different great worlds. The black flame dragon continued. What did you say? When Jiyu Fei heard this, he was pleasantly surprised. This fragment could actually open up a passage to different worlds. If that was the case, then he would be rich. At this moment, the flame reverend walked up to the item on the altar and placed his hand on the fragment. Swoosh. In the next moment, a beam of divine light shot out from the unknown fragment. Buzz. The void vibrated, and more than 10 passages appeared in the sky above the altar. Jiyu Fei could not help but be surprised. He could feel the different auras of heaven and earth from these passages. The black flame dragon was not lying. He did not dare to lie to Jiyu Fei because he knew very well how severe the consequences of lying to Jiyu Fei would be. Jiyu Fei really wanted to take a look at these passages, but he knew that now was not the time. At this moment, the flame reverend had retracted his hand from the item. In the next moment, the 10 passages disappeared into the void. The flame reverend picked up the palm-sized item and returned to Jiyu Fei. He handed the item to Jiyu Fei respectfully. Jiyu Fei did not stand on ceremony and took the item. The moment the item touched his hand, he felt it sink and almost fell to the ground. What on earth is this? Jiyu Fei looked at the item in his hand carefully. There were countless Dao patterns on the item. These Dao patterns looked like they were naturally formed. Could this be? Nan Batian suddenly thought of something and his expression changed drastically. You know what this is? The Flame Reverend and the Black Flame Dragon were shocked when they heard Nan Batian's words. This item might be the number 1 Dao weapon in the ancestral realm, the Wheel of Heavens and Worlds. Nan Batian said with a trembling voice. It was obvious that the overlord of this generation was stunned by his own words. Wheel of Heavens and Worlds. Jiyu Fei and the others were shocked to hear that. Just by hearing the name of the Dao artifact, they knew that it was definitely not an ordinary Dao artifact. A fragment of the Wheel of Heavens and Worlds. How is this possible? The Black Flame Dragon exclaimed. One should know that the title of the number 1 Dao weapon in the ancestral realm was not for nothing. The Wheel of Heavens and Worlds was said to be able to communicate with other realms and open up a passage to other realms. No wonder the experts in the ancestral realm could rule over other realms. This was the reason. Swoosh. At this moment, a figure dashed out from behind Jiyu Fei and grabbed the mysterious item in his hand. What? Everyone was shocked when they saw this. After the man snatched the item, he immediately turned around and fled. His movements were extremely fast. Trying to escape. Jiyu Fei suddenly smiled, and then instantly disappeared into the void. In the next moment, he blocked the exit and the person almost collided into him. Die. The person waved his right hand and a deathly sword light immediately shot out from his hand towards Jiyu Fei at an extremely fast speed. Void transformation, traceless. Jiyu Fei performed the anti-void secret skill and the deathly sword light slashed across his body. It was as if it was slashing the air and he did not feel any force at all. Bam! While that person was still in shock, a fist had already smashed into his chest. In the next moment, the sound of bones breaking could be heard from his body. Mph, how dare you steal my item? I will cripple you. Jiyu Fei attacked again. This time, a huge palm covered the entire sky. This was the sky-covering palm. The person could not avoid it and could only face it head-on. Without any suspense, Jiyu Fei directly knocked the person into the depths of the cave. Rumble. The entire sacred ground of the Black Fire clan was shaking as the ultimate power erupted. Even Nan Batian and the others were shocked and could not help but admire this person. This person dared to steal Jiyu Fei's item. He was really stupid. It's you. Chapter 3666. Haha, it's a fragment of the legendary Wheel of Heavens and Worlds. What a pleasant surprise. The Golden Crow first ancestor laughed heartily. Death aura surged around him and the surrounding divine Tao aura was quickly eroded and assimilated into death aura. How dare you steal from me? Do you think you can walk out of here alive? Jiyu Fei stared at the Golden Crow first ancestor and said coldly. At this moment, the entire sacred ground of the Black Fire race was shaking. The powerful power of the Black Yin flame erupted. The sacred ground of the Black Fire race was sealed and the protective array was activated. A powerful figure appeared on the altar deep in the sacred ground of the Black Fire race. That person was the Black Fire race leader, Yang Yu. The Black Fire race leader was not the Black Fire first ancestor but his son, Yang Yu. Yang Yu was indeed qualified to be the Black Fire race leader. In the Black Fire race, besides the Black Fire first ancestor, he had the highest status. The land spirit of the graveyard of the gods. How dare you barge into the sacred ground of the Black Fire race? You're courting death. Because the Black Fire clan was forced to submit to Jiyu Fei, Yang Yu had been suppressing his anger for a long time. Now that the Golden Crow ancestor had barged in and snatched the fragment, he could vent his anger on this guy. Hihi, I have the fragment of the Wheel of Heavens and Worlds. Can you stop me? The Golden Crow first ancestor was extremely arrogant. The Golden Crow race was almost exterminated by Jiyu Fei and Kang Qiu, but he could not wait to eat Jiyu Fei's flesh and drink Jiyu Fei's blood. You won't die if you don't. Since you want to die, I have no reason not to fulfill your wish. Jiyu Fei shook his head helplessly. As long as this Golden Crow first ancestor was alive, the Golden Crow race would always be a huge threat to him and Kang Qiu. If he killed this guy, the Golden Crow race would really be exterminated. Even if there were a few that escaped, they would not be a threat. This Golden Crow first ancestor actually barged into the sacred ground of the Black Fire race. This was a rare opportunity to kill this guy. Jiyu Fei did not want to miss this opportunity. Jiyu Fei, don't be too proud. I will destroy you and Kang Qiu sooner or later. The Golden Crow ancestor gnashed his teeth and stared at Jiyu Fei. While speaking, he directly injected a strong spirit power into the piece in his hand. Buzz! The fragment trembled and emitted a deafening sound. Then, a dozen or so transboundary passages immediately appeared in the void. No one knew which world these portals led to, but without a doubt, as long as the Golden Crow ancestor escaped into these portals, he would be able to escape from the sacred land of the Black Fire clan. However, the moment the dozen or so passages appeared, an ancient cauldron flew out from Jiyu Fei's body. In the next moment, a powerful force that could shake the heavens and earth erupted from the ancient cauldron. The dozen or so portals that had just appeared in the void directly collapsed and disappeared in the void. What? When the Golden Crow ancestor saw this, he was extremely shocked. Universe-suppressing cauldron. You want to escape? Did you ask me? Jiyu Fei shouted as he glared at the Golden Crow ancestor. The ancient cauldron hovered above Jiyu Fei's head and continuously emitted a terrifying aura that could shake the heavens. This ancient cauldron was Jiyu Fei's mountain river cauldron. How is this possible? The Golden Crow ancestor was in disbelief. He once again activated the fragment in his hand. However, this time, the fragment of the Wheel of Heavens and Worlds in his hand did not move at all. It's just a fragment. It's not a real Supreme Tao soldier. Do you think you can escape with just a fragment? What a joke! Jiyu Fei said in disdain. Roar. At this moment, the Black Fire dragon suddenly roared and pounced towards the Golden Crow ancestor. Its huge dragon claws were aimed at the Golden Crow ancestor. The Flame Reverend also made his move. A spear appeared in his hand and turned into a ray of divine light, instantly piercing towards the Golden Crow ancestor. So fast. The Golden Crow ancestor was shocked and hurriedly dodged to the side. The divine light brushed past his body and a wisp of black flame ignited his clothes. Roar. The Golden Crow ancestor roared and an endless amount of essence of death suddenly erupted from his body, dispersing the black flame on his body. At the same time, the Golden Crow ancestor made his move. He instantly disappeared from where he was and dodged the sharp claws of the black fire dragon. He appeared in front of the Flame Reverend and punched towards him. A violent fist force surged from his fist and the power of death exploded, cutting off all life. Although the Flame Reverend could not withstand a single blow from Jiu Fei, it did not mean that he was weak. It was just that Jiu Fei was too powerful. Black fire explosion. The Flame Reverend roared and his long hair danced in the wind. His fist was like a black meteorite that met the Golden Crow ancestor's fist. Boom! With a deafening bang, the two fists collided and two extremely powerful forces exploded. The Flame Reverend was sent flying. After all, there was still a gap between his combat power and the Golden Crow ancestors. A wave of the power of death invaded his right arm. Damn it! The Flame Reverend chopped off his own arm. The moment his right arm was chopped off, it turned into ashes. Seeing this, the Flame Reverend broke out in cold sweat. What a terrifying power of death! At this moment, Jiu Fei was watching from the side. He had used the Mountain River Cauldron to suppress the Golden Crow ancestor's space and cut off all his escape routes. The Golden Crow ancestor wanted to escape. It was very difficult. The Golden Crow ancestor was unforgiving and immediately chased after the Flame Reverend, wanting to kill the Flame Reverend. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared between the Golden Crow ancestor and the Flame Reverend. An extremely powerful power of the black fire of Yin exploded from the figure. What? The Golden Crow ancestor was shocked. Within the black fire, a huge hand slammed towards the Golden Crow ancestor. The violent power of the black fire of Yin exploded and even the space froze. Endless black fire filled every inch of the space. Boom! The Golden Crow ancestor punched forward without hesitation. The power of death exploded again and clashed with the huge hand of the black fire of Yin. This time, the Golden Crow ancestor was unable to push the figure back. Did the clan leader make a move? The Flame Reverend couldn't help but be surprised and delighted when he saw this scene. The power that emanated from the figure in front of him was unimaginably powerful, and it caused him to tremble. Die! The Golden Crow ancestor roared and used his ultimate move. He had no choice but to risk his life. One should know that if he could not escape, he would have to stay here forever. Boom! The power of death exploded again. It was unprecedentedly powerful and a golden crow of death appeared from his body. Then, it soared into the sky and pounced towards Yang Yu. Rumble! The entire black flame holy ground shook. The power of death that exploded from the Golden Crow of Death shook the entire black flame holy ground. However, the black flame holy ground was protected by a great formation and the mountain and river cauldron suppressed a part of the world. Even if the Golden Crow ancestor recovered his cultivation, he could not escape from the black flame holy ground. Since you're a dead soul, you should stay in the graveyard of the gods obediently. Since you dare to come out and harm the world, I'll let you die again. Yang Yu said righteously. This guy, Jiu Fei, was speechless when he saw Yang Yu's pretentiousness. This guy represented the world, why didn't he represent the moon to destroy this guy? If you want to fight, let's fight. You talk too much. The Golden Crow ancestor said in disdain. As he spoke, he attacked. At this moment, the Golden Crow of Death formed by his power of death had already started fighting against the black divine light that flew out from Yang Yu's body. The black divine light was extremely powerful. It actually blocked the Golden Crow of Death formed by the Golden Crow ancestor. Within the black divine light, a dragon-shaped figure could be vaguely seen. The aura that it emitted made people's hearts palpitate. It was as if a terrifying heavenly beast was hiding within the divine light. Could it be the great Yang heavenly dragon sword? The Flame Reverend exclaimed when he saw this scene. The great Yang heavenly dragon sword was the Black Flame clan's treasure. It was extremely powerful. Some people even suspected that it was an extreme Dao-level Dao treasure. Swoosh! With a flash of the sword light, the golden crow of death was actually slashed in the void. After the sword light slashed the golden crow of death formed by the golden crow ancestor, it directly fell towards the golden crow ancestor. The terrifying aura of destruction caused the golden crow ancestor's heart to palpitate. Clang! The golden crow ancestor raised the fragment of the wheel of myriad worlds in his hand. Yang Yu's great Yang heavenly dragon sword directly slashed on the fragment. The fragment of the wheel of myriad worlds actually blocked Yang Yu's sword. However, at this moment, the black flaming dragon opened its mouth and spat out a dragon's breath towards the golden crow ancestor. The pitch-black lunar true fire directly burned towards the golden crow ancestor. The golden crow ancestor hurriedly soared into the sky and dodged the mighty lunar true fire. Golden crow illuminates the sky. The golden crow ancestor roared in anger. His entire body instantly turned into a death moon that illuminated the void. He charged towards the black flaming dragon. The aura of death that erupted from the death moon became even more powerful. Seeing this, the black flaming dragon couldn't help but be shocked. Then, it immediately fled. A primogenitor-level existence like this was unimaginably powerful. Without any suspense, the black flaming dragon's mountain-like body instantly turned into a cloud of blood mist. However, in the next moment, the blood mist of the black flaming dragon rapidly condensed. A huge figure once again appeared in the sky. After the black flaming dragon reformed its physical body, it once again charged over. At this moment, there were 3 experts attacking the golden crow ancestor: Yang Reverend, Yang Yu, and the black flaming dragon. Any one of these experts was definitely an overlord-level existence. Nan Batian didn't say anything. He stood behind Jiyu Fei and paid close attention to the battle ahead. Chapter 3667. The Golden Crow ancestor was besieged by the 3 experts from the Black Fire clan, but he was still able to deal with them with ease. This shocked Nan Batian and the rest. The 3 experts from the Black Fire clan were not weaklings, especially the clan leader of the Black Fire clan, Yang Yu. He was extremely powerful and could draw the power of the Black Fire sacred ground to his body. At this moment, Yang Yu was simply as powerful as the Black Flame primogenitor. Terrifying and monstrous black flames surged from his body, enveloping every inch of the surrounding void. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of metal colliding came from Yang Yu's body. 9 black divine chains directly rushed out from his body, like 9 poisonous dragons, and coiled towards the golden crow ancestor. "Haha, you want to kill me with just the 3 of you? Dream on." The golden crow ancestor laughed. At the same time, an even more powerful death energy erupted from his body and the surrounding void was annihilated. The death energy could corrode everything, including the black moon flame. It was corroded by the death energy and assimilated by the golden crow ancestor. The golden crow ancestor was getting stronger as he fought, while the 3 experts from the Black Fire clan were getting weaker. If this continued, the outcome of the 3 experts from the Black Fire clan could be imagined. Jiyu Fei naturally noticed this, but he did not say anything. Nan Batian also noticed this, so he did not say anything. The Black Fire clan and the South Continent's Tyrant clan had always been enemies. As the number 1 expert of the Tyrant clan, Nan Batian could not wait to see the 3 experts from the Black Fire clan suffer. Why would he remind his 3 old enemies? The moment the 9 divine chains that charged out from Yang Yu's body came into contact with the ball of light of death that erupted from the golden crow ancestor's body, they dissipated in the air. When Yang Yu and the others saw this scene, their countenances changed. That ball of death light continued to surge outwards. Everywhere it passed, the extreme yin black flames would dissipate, transforming into death chi that was devoured by the light of death. When Yang Zun came into contact with the death light, half of his body disappeared instantly. He screamed in pain as he tried to escape far away from the attack. Roar! The great flame heavenly dragon sword in Yang Yu's hand soared into the sky, transforming into a black flame heavenly dragon that was even larger than a mountain. An extremely terrifying aura erupted from the black flame heavenly dragon. The entire black flame holy land shook violently. The power of the great flame heavenly dragon sword was exploding, but Yang Yu controlled this power very well. It wouldn't exceed the bottom line of the heavenly punishment, so it wouldn't attract the heavenly punishment. Everyone knew how terrifying the heavenly punishment was. It was the same even for Supreme Tao artifacts. Even Supreme Tao artifact gods would fear the heavenly punishment. Once the heavenly punishment descended, even Supreme Tao artifacts would be destroyed by the power of the heavenly punishment. The black dragon formed by the great flame heaven dragon sword swooped down from the sky towards the golden crow ancestor. Swoosh! The black flame sky dragon tore through the expanding light of death and slammed into the golden crow ancestor. The golden crow ancestor was sent flying. The light of death radiating from golden crow's body dissipated in the air. Boom! There was a loud sound, and the entire black flame holy land seemed like it was about to collapse. The golden crow ancestor slammed into the protective array of the black flame holy land, causing countless array patterns to dissipate. Roar! The black flame heavenly dragon formed by the great flame heaven dragon sword roared and charged towards the golden crow ancestor again. Damn it! This time, the golden crow ancestor couldn't help but be moved. The black flame clan wasn't simple. They actually had such a Tao artifact. This was definitely an extreme Tao artifact. Boom! 9 death Tao patterns rushed out from the golden crow ancestor's body. Each Tao pattern was like a lifelike golden crow. Each golden crow was bursting with the strongest power of death. Of course, the golden crow ancestor was very careful. He wouldn't cross the red line of the heavenly punishment. Once he attracted the heavenly punishment, his body and soul would definitely be destroyed. Rumble! The 9 golden crow Tao patterns rushed towards the black flame heavenly dragon. Every time they collided, there was an earth-shattering sound. With every collision, the black flame heavenly dragon paused for a moment. The 9 golden crows rushed forward and finally stopped the black flame heavenly dragon. In the next moment, the golden crow ancestor's figure disappeared in the air. T. Yang Yu was shocked. Before he could react, a light of death suddenly appeared from the void and slashed in front of him. He was shocked. However, he was the clan leader of the Black Flame clan who had experienced hundreds of battles. He instinctively moved his body to the side. The ray of death sliced through his right shoulder and cut off a small part of his body. Clan leader, Yang Zun and the Black Flame heavenly dragon were shocked. They quickly took action. The giant dragon claw tore at the figure that appeared in the air. Yang Zun even spat out a jet of his natal black flame towards the golden crow ancestor. Yang Zun's natal black flame was something that he had cultivated for countless years. He had condensed an endless amount of Tai Yin black flame. When he spat out the natal black flame, he was exhausted. Swoosh! At this moment, the ray of death appeared again and cut off the black flame heavenly dragon's 2 dragon claws. Black-colored dragon blood splattered. Every drop of dragon blood was like black lava. When it dripped onto the ground, it emitted traces of black gas. The ground was melted by the dragon blood. At this moment, the natal black flame that Yang Zun spat out reached the golden crow ancestor's body. In an instant, half of the golden crow ancestor's body was burned to ashes. The golden crow ancestor roared and flew into the sky to dodge. He did not expect the power of the black flame that Yang Zun spat out to be so terrifying. However, in the next moment, the power of death surged from the golden crow ancestor's body. In the blink of an eye, his bones and flesh were regenerated. His body that was burned to ashes was restored. The small part of Yang Yu's body that was cut off by the light of death was also restored. The golden crow ancestor did not gain the upper hand in the battle against the 3 ancestors of the Black Flame clan. From the looks of it, it was likely that both sides would suffer. Master, please take action. At this moment, a voice rang in Ji Yufei's mind. Yang Zun was begging Ji Yufei to take action. Only Ji Yufei could take care of this guy. You guys play with him first. Ji Yufei said. He had no intention of taking action. This made Yang Zun extremely anxious. If the battle continued, they might be defeated by the Golden Crow ancestor. Chapter 3668. Ji Yufei had no intention of interfering. This made Yang Zun and the others feel helpless. They could only continue fighting the terrifying Golden Crow ancestor. The black dragon formed by the Great Inferno Heavenly Dragon Sword charged towards the Golden Crow ancestor again. It was unbelievably powerful. This dragon was definitely a supreme existence that could shake the entire ancestral god realm when it was alive. The black dragon formed by the Great Inferno Heavenly Dragon Sword was on the ground, and the black dragon formed by the Great Inferno Heavenly Dragon Sword. They could not be compared at all. The Golden Crow ancestor disappeared into the void. The black dragon pounced on thin air, its huge dragon claws tearing through the void. Fight! Yang Zun hesitated no more. He used his natal black flames again. This time, he nearly killed the Golden Crow first ancestor. The Golden Crow first ancestor was covered in black flames as he screamed in fear and ran amok in the black flame sacred land. Die! Yang Yu raised his sword and cut the Golden Crow ancestor in half. He then snatched the shard from the Golden Crow ancestor's hand. That was a shard from the Myriad World Wheel, the number 1 Dao artifact of the ancestral god realm. Go to hell! Yang Zun roared. He used all his strength. He opened his mouth and spat out another gust of black flames, engulfing the Golden Crow ancestor. The Golden Crow ancestor roared again. His flesh and bones were being burned by the black flames. At this time, the black dragon also charged over. It spat out black flames, trying to refine the Golden Crow ancestor together with Yang Zun. However, the Golden Crow ancestor was once an extreme sovereign. He had a sovereign treasure body. It was not an easy task to kill him. At this moment, Yang Yu fully activated the Great Flaming Heavenly Dragon Sword. This divine sword continuously emitted a buzzing sound, and the black flaming heavenly dragon that it had transformed into disappeared into the void. Swoosh! Without any hesitation, Yang Yu slashed forward with the divine sword. In the next moment, boundless immortal energy exploded from the sword light. The Great Yang Heavenly Dragon Sword released an indestructible sword light. With a flash, the Golden Crow ancestor's head flew into the air. The power of the black flame sacred ground was exploding. Yang Yu drew upon all of it and used it to activate the Great Flame Heavenly Dragon Sword. Sword light flashed continuously, and the Golden Crow ancestor was already chopped into pieces. Return! At that moment, Ji Yufei held the cauldron of mountain and river in his hand and pointed the mouth of the cauldron at the remains of the Golden Crow ancestor. A heaven-devouring power immediately surged out of the cauldron. In the next moment, the corpse of the Golden Crow ancestor was completely swallowed by the mountain river cauldron. This way, no matter how strong the Golden Crow ancestor was, he was dead for sure. No one had ever escaped from the mountain and river cauldron before. Ji Yufei was in a good mood after finally getting rid of the Golden Crow ancestor. He took a fragment of the Wheel of Worlds and left the sacred land of the Black Fire clan. He returned to the ancestral land of the South Continent's tyrants. While Ji Yufei was still fighting in the ancestral god realm, a figure appeared in the human realm. "I'm finally back." That person sighed and then rushed into the sky towards the eastern region of the human realm. In an instant, he disappeared into the horizon. At this time, the human realm was even more chaotic than when Ji Yufei left. The ancient desolate forces of the human realm began to fight with each other. However, with Renhuang Jiang around, these forces did not dare to go too far even though they were causing trouble. The eastern region of the human realm was the territory of the eastern world and the Zhao clan of the desolate antiquity. Soon, that figure appeared in the eastern region, near the East Royal City. The East Royal City still stood tall in the eastern region. Countless years had passed and it still did not change. The person who returned to the human realm was Li Lingfeng. This time, he came back to rebuild the Taishen sect. He did not want the Taishen sect to go extinct just like that. Li Lingfeng's return alarmed many people. The Azure Dragon from the Azure Dragon clan came to find him. He wanted to know where Ji Yufei was because he wanted to fight with Ji Yufei. In the East Royal City, crooks and honest people mixed together. The news of Li Lingfeng's return spread from the East Royal City and then spread to the entire eastern region. When Li Lingfeng returned to the human realm, on the ancestral Myrtle Star of the human realm, a war that had lasted for more than 10 years had erupted. He Tian and Ji Changkong joined forces and completely fell out with Emperor Ji. Therefore, whoever's fist was harder would be able to ruthlessly torture the other party to death. Now, on the ancestral Myrtle Star, there were two factions. Ji Changkong and He Tian were also quite impressive. Therefore, without anything, they actually managed to pull together a team to fight against Emperor Ji. Of course, He Tian did not stop to plot against Emperor Ji. He Tian's tricks were very deep. Even someone as shrewd as Emperor Ji would fall for it. Brother, when are we going to play something big? In the ancestral Myrtle Star, in the Flying Immortal City's City Lord residence, He Tian and Ji Changkong were talking. They wanted to trick Emperor Ji again in the near future. You can do whatever you want, Ji Changkong said disapprovingly. Haha, He Tian laughed. Father, I finally succeeded. At the end of the human race's ancient road, a woman in ragged clothes stood on a mountain peak. She gazed into the distance and saw tens of thousands of divine lights of the immortal Tao. She directly rushed in the direction of the divine light of the immortal Tao, disappearing into the void. In the ancestral god realm, in the tyrant ancestral land, Ji Yufei sat cross-legged on a large rock. His heart was very calm. The killing intent in his heart had already dissipated a lot. I've been here for a few years. It's time to go back and take a look, Ji Yufei muttered to himself. He was just a passerby in the ancestral god realm. His roots were in the human realm and the heaven realm, not in the ancestral god realm. He had the ability to enter and exit the ancestral god realm. If he went back, he could cross over again. At this time, the resistance forces in the South Continent had basically been crushed by the army led by Yang Qi and Yang Tian. Countless forces were directly annihilated. The consequences of standing on the wrong side were very serious. The four extreme supremes were also in the tyrant ancestral land. Rumble, just as Ji Yufei was cultivating in the tyrant ancestral land, a thunderous sound suddenly sounded in the depths of the sky. An extremely terrifying destructive aura descended from the depths of the sky as if it was going to destroy the world. What's going on? Ji Yufei felt a trace of palpitation for no reason, as if something bad was about to happen. Soon, a Tao diagram surrounded by primordial chaos Qi appeared in the sky above the South Continent. This Tao diagram was very extraordinary and seemed to be able to contend with the power of heaven's punishment. Are those guys from the ancestral world here again? Chapter 3669. With the fall of the Golden Crow ancestor, the entire South Continent of the ancestral god realm gradually calmed down. The two ancestors of the Blackfire clan led the army of the Blackfire clan and almost swept the entire South Continent. This gave Nan Batian a lot of advantages. After all, Ji Yufei had asked him to help Kang Q evaluate the South Continent, but now that the Blackfire clan had helped, it was a lot easier. Most importantly, the casualties of the tyrants had decreased a lot. Although the tyrants had surrendered to Ji Yufei, Nan Batian was more or less unhappy. He was loyal to Ji Yufei on the surface, but he had other plans in secret. He wanted to maintain his strength. Ji Yufei did not have time to care about Nan Batian, because Nan Batian's life and death were in his hands. He was not afraid that Nan Batian would cause any trouble. However, on this day, Ji Yufei, who was cultivating in the ancestral land of the tyrants in the South Continent, suddenly felt a powerful aura coming from the depths of the sky. In the depths of the firmament, the primal chaos was vast and mighty. Countless primal chaos Tao patterns rushed out from the primal chaos and intertwined rapidly, forming a massive primal chaos array diagram. Ji Yufei rushed into the sky and directly entered the depths of the sky. When he saw the chaos array, he was extremely shocked. This was because he was very familiar with this array. It was the chaos sky ceiling diagram that appeared in the central continent that day. This diagram sealed the sky and almost made Ji Yufei suffer a big loss. What are those guys in the ancestral god realm doing? They are coming for me. Ji Yufei looked at this scene in shock. The depths of the sky were above the starry sky. This was a forbidden place for all living creatures because the biggest secret of this realm was also here. The power of the heavenly punishment also came from the depths of the sky. The power of the heavenly punishment did not appear for no reason. Jiu Fei guessed that the power of the heavenly punishment might be related to the disappearance of the extreme supremes. However, Jiu Fei knew that the ancestral god realm did not have the power of the heavenly punishment. Hence, the extreme supremes in the ancestral god realm were not in any danger. To Jiu Fei, the ancestral realm was an extremely dangerous place. Very soon, Jiu Fei knew that the fellows in the ancestral realm weren't targeting him. They wanted to use the power of heavenly punishment. Because as long as the obstacle of the power of heavenly punishment was resolved, the primogenitor realm's supreme martial artists would be able to enter and exit the ancestral god realm at will without any worries. Rumble. The primal chaos heaven-sealing diagram trembled. A monstrous and terrifying aura surged out from this Tao diagram, shaking the heavens. However, at that moment, countless runes rushed out from the depths of the sky and intertwined to form a shocking array. In the eye of the array, a figure could be vaguely seen. An extremely dangerous aura erupted from the figure. It was an aura that would make even an extreme-grade sovereign's heart palpitate. There was no doubt that the mysterious figure could kill a sovereign. As expected, Jiu Fei was extremely shocked when he saw this scene because it was so similar to the scene he'd seen in the depths of the sky all those years ago. Swish! A divine light suddenly rushed out from the mysterious figure and directly pierced through the primal chaos heaven-sealing diagram. This, Jiu Fei was taken aback. He had witnessed how powerful the primal chaos sky Fengliu diagram was. However, the primal chaos sky Fengliu diagram could not even withstand a single blow from the mysterious figure. I see. At that moment, an aged voice came from the primal chaos heaven-sealing diagram. Then, the diagram directly shattered the void and disappeared into the primal chaos. The primal chaos heaven-sealing diagram actually disappeared just like that. This baffled Jiu Fei. What were those fellows in the ancestral realm doing? Were they just trying to probe the power of heavenly punishment? The power of heavenly punishment was undeniable. It suppressed the extreme-grade sovereigns in the ancestral god realm so much that they didn't dare to show their faces. They had no choice but to seal their cultivation for fear of accidentally attracting the power of heavenly punishment. At this moment, the mysterious figure in the heavenly punishment formation suddenly looked at Jiu Fei. Jiu Fei couldn't help but be shocked. He wasn't an extreme-grade sovereign, so why was this mysterious figure targeting him? How was this possible? Just as Jiu Fei was bewildered, the mysterious figure in the heavenly punishment formation actually waved at Jiu Fei, and Jiu Fei immediately flew forward uncontrollably. What? This time, Jiu Fei was really shocked. Damn, what's going on? In just an instant, Jiu Fei flew into the heavenly punishment formation and directly arrived in front of the mysterious figure. At this moment, Jiu Fei was indescribably shocked. Because he sensed a familiar aura from the mysterious figure. How could this be? How is this possible? Could this mysterious figure actually be him? In the next moment, the blurry figure in front of Jiu Fei actually became clear. A middle-aged man wearing plain clothes appeared in front of him. It's you. Jiu Fei was utterly shocked. The middle-aged man in plain clothes was like an ordinary person. He did not emit any aura, and his appearance was very ordinary. He was the kind of person that would be neglected in a crowd. However, such an ordinary person gave Jiu Fei a great shock, because the person was the legendary martial progenitor, the extreme-grade martial progenitor. The martial arts of Jiu Fei and the middle-aged man in plain clothes came from the same source, thus there was an unfathomable resonance between them. I can only stay awake for a while. I didn't expect my successor to catch up to me so quickly. Very well, very well. The middle-aged man looked at Jiu Fei with a gratified expression. You're really the legendary martial progenitor. Jiu Fei's voice was trembling. It was too unbelievable. He actually saw the mysterious martial progenitor. How was this possible? He felt like he was dreaming. She recalled the legends about the martial progenitor. The martial progenitor did not establish a sect, he only created a path to become a martial progenitor. Martial existed before the martial progenitor became an extreme-grade martial progenitor. However, the martial progenitor was the first person to cultivate martial arts to the extreme and become an extreme-grade martial progenitor. Therefore, he was truly a martial progenitor. How could Jiyu Fei not be agitated, excited, and nervous after seeing the real martial progenitor? His body trembled slightly, and he almost had a hard time breathing. Martial progenitor, the people actually call me the martial progenitor, the middle-aged man said in surprise. Yeah, you're the only one who has the right to be called the martial progenitor. Jiyu Fei said excitedly. Is that so? All right, I don't have much time left. Remember, the people of the ancestral realm are not to be trusted. The martial progenitor said as he stretched out his right hand and tapped on Jiyu Fei's forehead. In the next moment, Jiyu Fei felt dizzy. Then, he saw the martial progenitor's life. It was as if he had become the martial progenitor, experiencing the martial progenitor's path of growth. Jiyu Fei felt as if he had entered the reincarnation cycle of heaven and earth. He became an orphan who was obsessed with martial arts. With every step he took, he kowtowed and worshipped the Martial Mountain's Grandmaster as his teacher and cultivated diligently. After he succeeded in his studies, he left the mountain to gain experience. He met the woman he loved and traveled the human world together. There were too many legends about them. In the end, the woman died in the martial progenitor's arms. She was killed by the martial progenitor because she was a member of the demonic Tao. The martial progenitor was inconsolable. His cultivation was crippled by the martial progenitor and he was expelled from the sect, becoming a cripple. The martial ancestor was a natural-born martial artist. He was able to comprehend the profound meaning of martial arts in the face of adversity. Not only did he recover his cultivation, but his strength had also improved greatly. Then, he fought his way from the foot of Martial Mountain all the way to the peak of Martial Mountain. In the end, he defeated the Grandmaster of Martial Mountain and left. It was as if Jiyu Fei had experienced it himself. After a long time, he finally regained his senses, and was shocked to discover that he was standing in the sky alone. The heavenly punishment formation and the martial progenitor had disappeared without him knowing. The martial progenitor was teaching Jiyu Fei in a different way. Jiyu Fei's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. If he could break through the bottleneck, he would become another martial supreme being. It was an opportunity for him to become an extreme martial supreme being. Jiyu Fei sat with his legs crossed in the air and continued to comprehend the martial progenitor's understanding of martial arts. The martial progenitor's understanding in particular allowed Jiyu Fei to see a whole new world of martial arts. It was extremely important to Jiyu Fei, as if he had seen a beacon in a dense fog. Jiyu Fei sat there for a year. During this year, Kang Qiu had completely conquered the southern continent. Following that, Kang Qiu set his sights on the western continent. He wanted to unify the ancestral god realm. He wanted to become the first realm master to successfully conquer all 5 continents of the ancestral god realm. However, when Kang Qiu sent his army to the western continent, he encountered something unexpected. The western continent suddenly sent out countless experts and defeated Kang Qiu's army. Kang Qiu almost vomited blood because his army was almost wiped out. Even his right-hand man, Peng Jingtian, was severely injured and almost died. The western continent, which was publicly recognized as the weakest continent in the ancestral god realm, had defeated Kang Qiu. The outcome shocked everyone. How is this possible? How can there be so many experts in the western continent? Where did these experts come from? Many people had the same question, but no one knew what had happened. It was as if the experts of the western continent had appeared out of nowhere. It was too abnormal. It was as if there was a mastermind behind everything. Someone was digging a hole for Kang Qiu to jump into. Kang Qiu suffered a great loss this time. Some people were happy while others were sad. The Shimen clan suffered a great loss too. Shimen Yijian almost died in the western continent. If Kang Qiu had not risked his life to save Shimen Yijian, Jiyu Fei's new disciple would have suffered a tragedy. Damn it, Kang Qiu, will not let this go. Kang Qiu's furious roar came from the South Continent's tyrant clan's ancestral land. Chapter 3671. When the news of Kang Qiu's crushing defeat in the West Continent spread, countless cultivators in the ancestral god realm were in an uproar. This outcome was simply unbelievable. After all, ever since Kang Q returned, he annihilated the Golden Crow clan, conquered the various clans of the East Continent, and became the overlord of the East Continent. He then marched into the Central Continent, annihilated the Pang clan, and became the ruler of the Central Continent. Kang Q's army was simply invincible. When he conquered the South Continent, he was unstoppable, and the South Continent's overlord clan had no choice but to submit to him. The Black Fire clan of the South Continent was also conquered by Kang Q's army. With Ji Yufei's support, Kang Q had never lost a battle. But now, he was actually defeated in the inconspicuous West Continent. None of the forces in the ancestral god realm expected Kang Q to lose, and lose so miserably. No one knew where the experts of the West Continent came from, but some guessed that it was a trap set up by the big shots of the ancestral god realm. The current West Continent was simply a slaughterhouse. Kang Q naturally wouldn't let it go after suffering heavy losses in the West Continent. He wanted to meet Ji Yufei and ask Ji Yufei for help. Now, he had developed a habit of asking Ji Yufei for help if he couldn't handle something. If even Ji Yufei couldn't handle it, then it was all over. The sword slaves and the others would only listen to Ji Yufei, not Kang Q. After all, whether it was the sword slaves, the extreme Dao Corpse demon, Zhong Han and Shen Ying, or the fire ape progenitor, their cultivation was definitely not below Kang Q's. How could these people listen to Kang Q? As long as Ji Yufei didn't give the order, the sword slaves and the others wouldn't move. Even Kang Q wouldn't be able to ask them to move. As for Nan Batian and the experts of the Black Fire clan, they wouldn't listen to Kang Q, because they only obeyed Ji Yufei. It could be said that without Ji Yufei, it would be difficult for Kang Q to unify the East Continent with just his strength alone, let alone become the overlord of the Central Continent. On the surface, Kang Q was the overlord, but behind him was Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei was the true overlord. At this time, Ji Yufei was in seclusion in the sky. The fire ape primogenitor and the others were guarding him. Kang Q had come a few times already, but he was stopped by the fire ape primogenitor and the others. He couldn't even see Ji Yufei. Kang Q could only wait because he had no other choice. He had sent more than 10 scouts into the Western Continent, but none of them had returned. In other words, they did not even know the situation in the West Continent. This made Kang Q feel extremely sullen. When is Master coming out of seclusion? Now that Shimon Yijian had arrived, the fire ape primogenitor didn't put Kang Q in his eyes, but he didn't dare to offend Shimon Yijian. One had to know that Shimon Yijian was Ji Yufei's disciple. It was only human nature for a disciple to visit his master. Master has yet to awaken from his cultivation. You should leave. The fire ape progenitor said. Shimon Yijian sighed. Without saying anything, he turned around and left. With the fire ape primogenitor and the others guarding nearby, no one could get close to Ji Yufei. At this time, even Shimon Yijian couldn't see Ji Yufei, let alone others. After Shimon Yijian left, no one else came to look for Ji Yufei. In the depths of the South Continent's overlord's ancestral land, inside a cave dwelling, dozens of experts were gathered. These experts were either sitting or standing, looking at the person in the lead. And the person in the lead was Nan Batian. Lord Patriarch, who does that Kang Q think he is? How dare he act tyrannically above our heads? Damn it. A young overlord expert said angrily. That's right. What right do they have to occupy our ancestral land? Another middle-aged expert said. We must chase all of them away. An old man said angrily. Inside the cave dwelling, everyone was cursing Kang Q and his subordinates. But strangely, no one was cursing Ji Yufei. All of you, shut up. Nan Batian suddenly shouted. He also wanted to chase away Kang Q and these outsiders, but was it possible? Kang Q had Ji Yufei behind him. Who would dare to go against Ji Yufei? The cave dwelling immediately quietened down. Lord Patriarch, we are suffering from this vexation, the old man said angrily. All of us are suffering, but we must learn to endure. Nan Batian said. But how long are we going to endure? Someone said. Let's wait and see. Nan Batian said helplessly. For Nan Batian, he could only wait now. Subsequently, Nan Batian stood up and walked into the depths of the cave dwelling, leaving the experts in the cave dwelling to discuss. At this time, Kang Q didn't know that he was being scolded by the tyrants. He was sitting cross-legged under a big tree in the ancestral land of the tyrants. Lord Primogenitor, what should we do now? A middle-aged cultivator stood in front of Kang Q. This person was Peng Shi. What else can we do? Kang Q said helplessly. The tyrants seem to be acting strangely these few days. Should we pay attention? Peng Shi said worriedly. Mph, don't worry about them. Kang Q said. Could the tyrants fly to the sky? He knew that Nan Batian had already surrendered, but his subordinates were arrogant and unruly. Nan Batian might not appear, but it was hard to say what his subordinates would do. Rumble. At this time, a thunderous sound suddenly came from the sky. In the next moment, everyone sensed a powerful aura descending from the sky, disturbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. What's going on? Kang Q stood up abruptly, took a step forward, and instantly disappeared from the spot. Peng Shi was shocked when he saw this. Soon, Kang Q's figure appeared in the depths of the sky. A mass of primordial chaos divine light was suspended in the void, and that mass of divine light was like a flame, pulsating. Under the primordial chaos divine light, a figure was faintly discernible. Daoist Gu Fei. Kang Q was inexplicably shocked when he saw this scene. At this time, powerful figures began to appear. Has Master finally taken that step? The fire ape primogenitor and the others could not help but be moved when they sensed the aura emanating from Gu Fei's body. Gu Fei's aura seemed to have an aura that was about to trigger the power of heavenly punishment. In the depths of the sky, a terrifying and monstrous aura of destruction descended. Even the powerful fire ape primogenitor could not help but feel his heart palpitate when he sensed this aura. He's going to become a supreme. Zhong Han and Xian Ying stared at the figure enveloped by the primordial chaos divine light. With the existence of the power of heavenly punishment, no one would dare to undergo a tribulation at this time because it was no different from courting death. Endless primordial chaos divine light circled around Gu Fei's body, and the aura it emitted was incomparably powerful. It had already triggered the power of heavenly punishment, but it did not explode. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Thus, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Gu Fei had great control over his aura. Swish. An array platform suddenly rushed out from Gu Fei's body and rapidly expanded in the void. Gu Fei leaped onto the formation platform and activated the teleportation formation. It didn't take long for a strand of devouring energy to surge out from the formation platform. In the next moment, Gu Fei vanished in the void. After an unknown amount of time, a familiar aura entered Gu Fei's nose. He saw an endless mountain range and primitive forest all around him. Roar. Suddenly, a roar came from a valley in the distance. The entire mountain forest was shaking and many birds were startled away. Primordial chaos divine light was actually lingering in this world. Other than that, there were also various kinds of pure essence energy. This place was practically a cultivator's paradise. Gu Fei saw a black tiger walking out from the opposite mountain range. This black tiger was very big, more than twice the size of an ordinary tiger. The tiger's body exuded a heart-palpitating baleful aura. Roar. That black tiger roared at the sky again, causing the forest to shake. In the next moment, this fierce tiger pushed off the ground and pounced at Gu Fei. A violent and baleful aura assaulted Jiang Yi. Mph, courting death. Gu Fei waved his right hand, and a sword light immediately flashed through the void like a bolt of lightning. The black tiger was split into two by Gu Fei's sword. Blood and internal organs were all over the ground, and a bloody smell pervaded the air. This is the primogenitor's world. Gu Fei looked around and muttered to himself. He sensed the heaven and earth spiritual energy in this world and realized that although this was a barren mountain range, the spiritual energy was very dense. Moreover, the various kinds of heaven and earth spiritual energy in the ancestral realm were extremely pure. If he cultivated here, Gu Fei was confident that he could rush to the extreme grade sovereign realm in one go. Just as Gu Fei entered the ancestral realm, The south continent of the ancestral god realm was in a mess because of Ji Fei's departure. Pang Qiu could not control the situation at all. Lord Clan Master, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In the cave dwelling of the tyrant clan's ancestral land, an elder spoke to Nan Batian. Let's wait and see. Nan Batian was very cautious. It was not by chance that he could become the clan master of the tyrant clan. He had the strength and means to do so. Lord Clan Master, don't wait anymore. If you miss the opportunity, it won't come again. The elder said. Nan Batian pondered for a long time before saying to the elder, go and prepare. Lord Clan Master is wise. The elder actually knelt in front of Nan Batian and was extremely emotional. All right, don't talk nonsense here. Get lost. Go and prepare before I change my mind. Nan Batian waved his hand and the elder flew out of the cave dwelling. After the elder left, a figure silently walked out from the depths of the cave dwelling. This person was surrounded by chaotic energy and was actually an expert from the ancestral realm. This person was very young, at least in Nan Batian's eyes. Of course, this was only the appearance of this expert from the ancestral realm. When will you help me remove the forbidden technique in my body? Chapter 3672. Nan Batian had always been in contact with the people of the primogenitor realm. He did not submit to them, but cooperated with them. The Lin clan of the primogenitor realm was also a large and powerful clan in the primogenitor realm. Nan Batian was already very unhappy when he was suppressed by an old ancestor of the Lin clan. At this time, another person from the Lin clan came, and Nan Batian naturally did not have a good expression. Remove the forbidden technique in my body so that I will not have to worry about it. Nan Batian stared at the young-looking person from the Lin clan and said with a solemn expression. Ji Fei had planted a forbidden technique in his body. Once he found out that Nan Batian dared to betray him, Ji Fei could annihilate Nan Batian with just a thought. Nan Batian did not want to die unjustly. Therefore, in order for him to truly rebel against Ji Fei, the first condition was to remove the forbidden technique that Ji Fei had planted in his body. This is simple. The young man said indifferently. Simple. Nan Batian could not help but shake his head with a bitter smile. Damn, you say it's simple? I have thought of all kinds of methods, but I could not even figure out what kind of forbidden technique Ji Fei had planted in my body was. The young man smiled and waved his right hand. A ray of divine light directly enveloped Nan Batian. Swish. The young man and Nan Batian disappeared in the void at the same time, without a trace. Just when the Overlord was scheming against Ji Fei and Kang Qiu was completely unaware of it. Meanwhile, Ji Fei had also left the primogenitor realm and entered that legendary world. There was no heavenly punishment here. Ji Fei stood on a mountain peak and looked around. He saw endless mountain ridges. Everywhere he looked were mountains and primitive forests. Occasionally, there would be palpitating roars of wild beasts coming from the mountain ridges. This mountain range was occupied by powerful and terrifying wild beasts. The wild beasts here were much stronger than the wild beasts of any other world. The extreme Dao ancestor beasts here were existences that could contend against extreme Dao supremes. Undergoing tribulation here will definitely alarm the extreme Dao supremes of the primogenitor realm. Ji Fei muttered to himself. It was impossible for him to undergo tribulation in other worlds because of the existence of heaven's punishment. Who would dare to undergo tribulation in other worlds? This was impossible, unless this guy was courting death. Let's find a place to stay first. Ji Fei soared into the sky and disappeared into the horizon. The primogenitor mountain range was the largest, most primitive, and most ancient mountain range in the primogenitor realm. Powerful supreme Dao ancestral beasts roamed the depths of the primogenitor mountain range. Outside the primogenitor mountain range was the world of the human race in the primogenitor world. The humans here considered themselves to be the primogenitors of the human race and were high above. The primogenitor realm was the source of all worlds. The beings of the primogenitor realm were born with the courage to surpass others. Outside the primogenitor mountain range, a huge mountain floated high in the sky. The mountain was decorated with waterfalls and flowing springs, and pavilions could be seen everywhere. It was completely the atmosphere of an immortal. On the ground, countless humans were making their way toward the divine mountain from all directions. Today was the recruitment day for a sect outside the Primogenitor mountain range, the Ying Sky sect. All the humans within 1,000 miles were heading towards the Ying Sky sect. The Ying Sky sect wasn't considered a particularly strong sect in the Primogenitor realm. However, the backing of the Ying Sky sect was very strong. It was an external force of the Wood race in the Primogenitor realm. The Wood race was a cultivation family with an extreme Tao supremacy. With such a backing, there was naturally no one who would dare to touch the Ying Sky sect. The old ancestor of the Ying Sky sect was an existence closest to the extreme Tao supremacy realm. Some people said that the old ancestor of the Ying Sky sect was about to undergo tribulation. At this moment, a black-robed youth walked over from the mountain path in the distance. This black-robed youth was Ji Fei. He wanted to enter the Ying Sky sect. Starting from the Ying Sky sect, he would then understand the entire Primogenitor realm. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. At this time, Ji Fei had sealed his cultivation base and turned into a normal person with decent muscles and bones. One had to know that if he wanted to enter the Ying Sky sect, he would have to show some advantages. However, what shocked Ji Fei was that there were actually so many people who wanted to enter the Ying Sky sect. He stood on a short mountain and looked at the people gathering from all directions. He couldn't help but be moved. "Brother, are you also here to participate in the entrance trial of the Ying Sky sect?" At this time, a person walked over from behind Ji Fei. Ji Fei turned around and saw that it was a fatty dressed in beast skin. This fellow was clearly fair and plump, but he gave off a rough feeling in the beast skin. "You are?" Ji Fei looked at the fatty in confusion. "Wang Long, what about you?" The fatty was very familiar with people. "I'm Ji Fei." Ji Fei didn't hide it. In fact, there were a few people in the Primogenitor realm who knew his name. However, those people were all high and mighty existences, so they naturally wouldn't pay attention to the current Ji Fei. Moreover, those big shots in the Primogenitor realm would never have thought that Ji Fei would dare to enter the Primogenitor realm. "Brother Ji, how about we travel together?" Wang Long said with a smile. "Sure." Ji Fei agreed without hesitation. He wasn't afraid of this fellow playing any tricks. "I still have 2 friends waiting down there. Let's go down together," Wang Long said to Ji Fei. "All right, then let's head down," said Ji Fei. He had also sensed that there were indeed 2 people resting under a tree at the foot of the hill. They had started a bonfire under the tree and were roasting the meat of the beasts they had hunted. When Ji Fei and Wang Long came down from the mountain, the forest was already filled with the fragrance of meat. This aroused Ji Fei's appetite. After all, mortals weren't immortals or gods. They still needed to eat. Even immortals and gods needed to eat. It was just that the food they ate was heavenly treasures. "Yang Zhon, Ling Feng, this is Ji Fei. Brother Ji, this is Yang Zhon, this is Ling Feng." Wang Long introduced his 2 friends to Ji Fei, and he also introduced Ji Fei to his 2 friends. Thus, everyone got to know each other. Ji Fei sat down next to the bonfire under the invitation of Wang Long and the others. He took out a jar of wine from his pouch. He was now a mortal, so he naturally had to look presentable. He had a pouch with him. The pouch contained clothes and some food, as well as a few jars of wine. Wang Long couldn't help laughing when he saw Ji Fei take out a jar of wine from his pouch. "Haha, brother Ji, you really know how to enjoy life. You actually have such a good thing with you." Yang Zhon and Ling Feng also exchanged a smile. This Ji Fei was quite interesting. He had actually brought wine with him to participate in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial. It had to be known that the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial was very important to them. If they could succeed, it would be the same as ascending to the heavens in a single step. Ji Fei directly removed the clay seal and took a big gulp before handing it to Wang Long. Wang Long laughed and also took a big gulp before handing it to Yang Zhon. Yang Zhon also took a gulp before handing it to Ling Feng. The 4 of them sat next to the bonfire, drinking and chatting about their experiences. It turned out that although Wang Long was a mortal, he came from a mortal sect. A mortal sect naturally couldn't be compared to the Ying Tianzong. Wang Long's physique was not bad. He was only in his 20s, but he had already cultivated to the peak of the Hutian realm. He was only one step away from becoming a Xiantian master. In the mortal world, a Xiantian expert was a master, but in front of immortals, there was no difference between them and ants. Only by entering the Ying Tianzong could Wang Long and the others embark on the path of true experts. Yang Zhon and Ling Feng also came from a cultivation clan in the mortal world. They were also only one step away from becoming Xiantian masters. In fact, if they became Xiantian masters, their chances of passing the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial would be higher. However, they couldn't afford to wait. It was too difficult to break through from the Hutian realm to the Xiantian realm. They were already in their 20s. If they were over 30, they wouldn't have the opportunity to participate in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial. This was because the age to participate in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial was from 15 to 30. As long as one was over 30, they couldn't participate in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial. So no matter what, Wang Long and the others had to give it their all. If they were lucky enough to pass the entrance trial, their dreams would come true. Ji Yufei learned from Wang Long and the others that the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial was centered around the Ying Tianzong's ancestral mountain, covering a radius of 50,000 miles. No one knew how many humans lived within that radius, but it was definitely an astronomical number. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many people rushing over to participate in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial. Hey, isn't this that damn fatty Wang Long? You also dare participate in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial? At this time, 7 or 8 youths suddenly walked into the forest. The one leading them was a 20-year-old youth in azure robes. He smiled mischievously at Wang Long. Chi Hao, what do you want? Wang Long was startled to see this youth. Haha, of course I came here to eat and drink. You can scram, but leave the good wine and meat behind. The youth called Chi Hao sneered. Who do you think you are to tell us to leave? Yang Zhon sneered at Chi Hao. You're courting death. A white-robed youth beside Chi Hao roared. With a flash, he appeared in front of Yang Zhon and pressed a hand against Yang Zhon's chest. Bang! Yang Zhon was sent flying as if he had been struck by a giant hammer. He tumbled to the ground and vomited a mouthful of blood. Qi Ming, you! Wang Long was infuriated when he saw this scene. However, the Qi brothers were Xiantian experts, and they weren't a match for them. He dares to speak to my big brother like that. I'm already being merciful by not killing him. The young man called Qi Ming glanced at Wang Long and sneered. Damn it, you're too much. Wang Long was furious. He took a step forward. Even if he knew he wasn't their match, he still wanted to fight them. You're also courting death. Good. Chapter 3673. Wang Long and Chi Hao were facing each other in a forest 300 miles away from Sky Sect. Wang Long knew he wasn't Chi Hao's match, but he still wanted to fight. Fatty Wang, I admire your courage. Kevern smiled, a very happy smile. However, in Wang Long's eyes, Chi Hao's smile made him extremely nervous. Chi Hao was a famous smiling tiger. Once he smiled, someone would die. This guy doesn't know what's good for him. He actually wants to fight Boss Chi. Exactly. His head must have been kicked by a donkey. Haha. The youths behind Chi Hao were all ridiculing Wang Long. They all thought he was overestimating himself. Chi Hao was a Xiantian expert, while Wang Long was only a peak Hutian physique cultivator. In the primogenitor realm, cultivators below the Xiantian realm were usually physique cultivators. They trained their muscles and bones to break through to the Xiantian realm. But once they reached the Xiantian realm, they would have to join a sect to continue cultivating. In the primogenitor realm, there were all kinds of cultivation systems. Some chose to become immortals, some chose to become gods, and some chose to become devils. Chi Hao, don't go too far. Wang Long stared at Chi Hao and said in a deep voice. Haha, what can you do if I go too far? Chi Hao laughed. At this time, Ji Yufei had been watching silently from the side. Brother Ji Yu, Brother Ling, leave with Brother Yang first. Wang Long said to Ji Yufei with his back facing him. "TCH, you still want to leave? Do you think we're air?" Qi Hao's younger brother, Qi Ming, sneered and waved his right hand. The youths behind him immediately surrounded Ji Yufei's group. Ling Feng had already helped Yang Zhon up. Yang Zhon had been sent flying by Qi Ming's palm and was heavily injured. Although he had eaten healing pills, he had temporarily lost the ability to fight. "Be careful, don't kill them. It's not good to kill near Sky Sect." Qi Hao smiled. "Got it, Boss Qi." As the young cultivators surrounded Ji Yufei and the others, they spoke in an unscrupulous manner. Their tone was very arrogant. "You should rejoice. Otherwise, today would be the day you die." Qi Hao looked disdainfully at Wang Longyu. Wang Long was shocked and angry. This guy was too hateful. "If you want to fight, then let's fight. What's the point of talking so much?" At this time, Ling Feng suddenly shouted at Kevern. "Very good. Brothers, since their skin is itching, let us help them scratch it." Kevern shouted. "Haha." The other young cultivators laughed out loud. "Go to hell." Wang Long roared. He stomped on the ground and turned into a blur as he charged towards Kevern. His right fist smashed towards Kevern. A violent power erupted from Wang Long's fist, causing the leaves in the forest to dance and the surrounding trees to shake. However, Qi Hao was still smiling. He extended his right hand and instantly caught Wang Long's fist. In the next moment, Wang Long's body was sent flying and smashed into the ground. Bam! Wang Long fiercely smashed into the ground. Dust immediately flew up, and a human-shaped pit appeared. "You overestimate yourself." Kevern looked at Wang Long on the ground with disdain. He then ruthlessly kicked Wang Long's waist, causing him to slide several meters forward. At this time, Qi Ming and the other young cultivators had already made their moves. Qi Ming was very ruthless. He actually pulled out a sword and wanted to completely cripple Ji Yufei's group. Ying Tian Sect's mountain gates were open today to welcome youths and young cultivators from all over. On this day, no deaths were allowed within a 10,000-mile radius of Ying Tian Sect. This was the rule of Ying Tian Sect. All the cultivators who came to participate in the entrance trial had to abide by it. However, Qi Hao wanted to take advantage of this loophole. Ying Tian Sect only said that no deaths were allowed, but it did not say that injuries were not allowed. As long as Wang Long and his group were not beaten to death, it was not against the rules. They could still participate in the entrance trial. Swish. Qi Ming fixed his eyes on Ji Yufei. The flexible sword in his hand instantly straightened and directly stabbed at the joint of Ji Yufei's left shoulder. If it hit, Ji Yufei's entire arm would be crippled. Of course, if he was an ordinary person, Ji Yufei's arm would be crippled. However, he was not an ordinary person. Moreover, Ji Yufei would not be so easily stabbed. He moved his feet and instantly appeared in another direction. His speed was extremely fast. What? Qi Ming was shocked. How could this guy's speed be so fast? The other young cultivators also attacked Ling Feng and Yang Zhon. Ling Feng and Yang Zhon were no match for these people. Just as they were about to be beaten to the ground, a figure rushed over. Bam! 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 That person's fists continuously smashed out, and all the young cultivators were sent flying. They fell to the ground and groaned in pain. For a moment, they could not stand up. The person who attacked was Ji Yufei. Brother Ji Yu, Ling Feng and Yang Zhon were stunned by this scene. They had not expected that the friend they had just met would be so powerful. The two brothers, Qi Hao and Qi Ming, looked at Ji Yufei in shock. They had actually misjudged him. They did not expect Ji Yufei to be an inborn expert. Swish. Qi Ming immediately attacked. The flexible sword in his hand was like a poisonous snake, piercing towards Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei laughed coldly. He reached out with his right hand and grabbed the flexible sword that was piercing towards him. Then, he violently pulled it back. Qi Ming only felt a shock in his hand. The flexible sword in his hand flew out of his hand and was snatched away by his opponent. He also staggered a few steps forward. Bam! Ji Yufei's fist directly landed on Qi Ming's chest. Qi Ming immediately became like a prawn. His entire body arched up, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly became extremely pale. He fell to the ground and curled up into a ball. Second brother. When Qi Hao saw this, he immediately became extremely nervous. If his dantian was broken by his opponent, then his second brother's entire life's worth of cultivation would be wasted. Go to hell! Qi Hao roared angrily and attacked with all his strength. He was like a mad bull, directly crashing into Ji Yufei's body. Ji Yufei did not move, but Qi Hao was in a tragedy. He only felt as if he had crashed into an extremely hard piece of divine metal. The sound of bones breaking came from his body, and his entire body was sent flying by the recoil. Who are you? Qi Hao was dumbfounded. This inconspicuous black-robed youth was actually stronger than him. How was this possible? Was this guy a great accomplishment inborn expert? At this moment, even Wang Long, who had just crawled up from the ground, was dumbfounded. He also did not expect Ji Yufei to actually be so powerful. "Mph, if you want to cripple us, I should be the one crippling you." Ji Yufei looked at Qi Hao and said coldly, "Damn it." Qi Hao was both shocked and angry. At this time, his left arm was already broken, and this would definitely affect his participation in the Ying Tian sect's entrance trial. At this time, even his intestines were green with regret. "You still want to participate in the Ying Tian sect's entrance trial?" Ji Yufei said to Qi Hao with a naughty smile. Swish! Qi Hao suddenly turned around and fled. He actually abandoned his second brother and his dog friends to escape alone. Ji Yufei smiled, but he did not chase after Qi Hao. "Brother Ji Yu, don't let him escape," Wang Long anxiously said to Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei did not say anything. He only bent down and picked up 3 small stones from the ground. Then with a wave of his right hand, the 3 small stones directly shot towards the escaping Qi Hao. Qi Hao had just escaped the forest, but before he could rejoice, he let out a blood-curdling scream and directly fell to the ground. Both his legs and right arm had a bloody hole. At this time, Ling Feng made his move. He broke the limbs of those guys that Ji Yufei had knocked down. He had to do this because if it was not for Ji Yufei, they would have ended up like Qi Hao and his brother. This was a world where the strong preyed on the weak. If they were not ruthless, they would be the ones to die. Wang Long and the rest were very clear about this law of the jungle, but they did not kill. Therefore, these guys could only be injured but not killed. It was impossible for them to recover in a short time. Haha, today was really a good day. Yeah, today was a good day. Serves them right for being unlucky. Ling Feng and Wang Long walked out of the forest and saw Qi Hao lying on the ground. "Weren't you very arrogant just now? Now you're not arrogant anymore." Ling Feng came in front of Qi Hao and stepped on his head, his face full of disdain. "You." Qi Hao gritted his teeth, his eyes were red, but he could not do anything because his limbs were already broken. He could only lie on the ground like a fish on a chopping board. He was an Xiantian expert, but he had fallen to such a miserable state. This almost drove him crazy. "You better kill me now, or I will definitely kill you all," Qi Hao roared. "Hihi, what can a piece of trash like you do?" Ling Feng said coldly. "Cripple his dantian, make him a real cripple," Yang Zhon said suddenly. "That's right. That's right. A guy like you deserves this kind of punishment." As Ling Feng spoke, he directly kicked Qi Hao's dantian. "You all." Qi Hao was filled with hatred. Once his dantian was crippled, his cultivation would disappear and he would become an ordinary person. He would no longer be a high and mighty Xiantian expert. This was even crueler than killing him. "Stop." At this time, a voice suddenly came from the sky. A figure descended from the sky and landed in front of Ji Yufei and the rest. Ji Yufei looked and saw that this person was actually a fairy in white, shrouded in an immortal aura. Her face was covered with a veil, and her eyes were filled with spiritual energy, sizing up Ji Yufei and the rest. An immortal from Yingtian sect. Chapter 3674. Wang Long and the rest were about to cripple Qi Hao outside a forest in a mountain range near Yingtian sect's Yingtian courtyard. But at this moment, a celestial figure descended from the sky and landed in front of them. The celestial light dissipated and a figure appeared from within. Everyone focused and saw that this person was actually a white-clothed fairy with her face covered. Although they couldn't see the fairy's appearance, the white-clothed fairy's figure was not bad. Especially the extraordinary celestial aura on her, it was even more awe-inspiring. "What are you guys doing?" The white-robed fairy looked at Chi Hao on the ground and said coldly, "Fairy, don't misunderstand. We're not bad people. The real bad guy is this guy on the ground. He wants to cripple us because he's an innate expert. We're just defending ourselves." Wang Long quickly said, "Is that really the case?" The white-robed fairy said indifferently, without a trace of emotion in her tone. "That's the truth," Wang Long said. He didn't dare to hide anything in front of the white-robed fairy. One should know that this was an immortal. In the eyes of mortals, immortals were omnipotent existences. Ji Yufei had been watching from the side without saying a word. Ling Feng, on the other hand, stood with his hands by his side. He didn't even dare to look at the white-robed fairy as he trembled. "Fairy sister, you have to stand up for me. These people are the bad guys. They plotted against us, wanted to steal our things, injured us, and prevented us from participating in the entrance tests." At this moment, Chi Hao, who was on the ground, wailed. His snot and tears were running down his face. He acted as if it was real. Even Ji Yufei couldn't help but admire his acting skills. "You guys can't fool me." The white-robed fairy reached out with her right hand. A ray of celestial light rushed out from her hand and instantly rushed into Wang Long's forehead. In the next moment, Wang Long seemed to have turned into a wooden man. He didn't move at all and his eyes were dull. His mind was actually controlled by someone. Very quickly, the white-robed fairy retracted the celestial light that she had shot into Wang Long's forehead. Then, her eyes turned sharp. "Very well, you actually dared to lie to me." As she spoke, she waved her right hand and sharp blades of light immediately rushed out of her hand. One of the blades of light directly beheaded Chi Hao, who was on the ground. The other light blades flew directly into the forest, instantly killing Chi Ming and the others inside. The smell of blood permeated the forest. This, Wang Long, who had just regained consciousness, and Ling Feng, as well as Yang Zhon, were all frightened by this scene. None of them expected the white-clothed fairy to suddenly kill Chi Hao and the others. Swish! A ray of celestial light surged out from the white-robed fairy. Before Wang Long and the others could react, the white-robed fairy turned into celestial light and shot into the sky, disappearing. What happened? Wang Long and the others were dumbfounded. Just now, I felt like I was seen through by Fairy Sister. It seems like I have no secrets to hide in front of her. Wang Long recalled the scene just now and said with lingering fear, "That's a soul-searching technique." Ji Yufei, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke. "A soul-searching technique?" Wang Long and the others couldn't help being startled. Could it be one of those legendary immortal arts that can read other people's memories? Ling Feng was shocked. It should be that kind of immortal art. Ji Yufei nodded. No wonder Fairy Sister killed Chi Hao. He actually dared to lie to Fairy Sister. He deserved to be killed. Yang Zhon seemed to be rejoicing in Chi Hao's misfortune. "Brother Ji Yu, how did you know Fairy Sister used a soul-searching technique just now?" Wang Long looked at Ji Yufei. "That's just a guess." Ji Yufei shrugged. Seeing that Ji Yufei wasn't willing to say, Wang Long tactfully didn't continue asking. He didn't believe that Ji Yufei was just guessing. Ji Yufei definitely recognized this immortal art. Could it be that Ji Yufei was actually a descendant of one of those cultivation clans? The Ying Tian sect ruled over a vast territory. The entire sect was divided into the Ancestral Gate and 12 subsects. Under the 12 subsects, there were also 36 subsects. The Ying Tian sect could be said to be filled with experts and countless immortals. It ruled over 1 billion territories and billions of living beings. Even if a mortal spent their entire life, they would not be able to traverse the territories ruled by the Ying Tian sect. This time, when the Ying Tian sect opened its doors to accept disciples, it naturally attracted the attention of everyone and shocked the entire mortal world. The Ying Tian sect was only a small sect in the ancestral realm. Only sects with a supreme great ancestor could be considered a big sect, and supreme great ancestors were also divided into strong and weak ones. The Ying Tian great ancestor was only a quasi-supreme being. In the ancestral realm, which was filled with powerhouses, a quasi-supreme being was really nothing. We're rich. Qi Hao is really unlucky. Let's split his things evenly. Ling Feng said excitedly. Qi Hao came from a cultivation clan in the mortal world. Although it was not a powerful cultivation clan, he still cultivated to the innate realm. This time, Qi Hao and the others naturally brought a lot of things to participate in the Ying Tian courtyard's entrance test. Wang Long, Ling Feng, and the injured Yang Zhon began to move and found many good things from Qi Hao and the others. Xiantian grade weapons and medicinal pills, these were all good things, especially Yang Zhon. After eating the medicinal pills found on Qi Hao's body, his injuries actually took a significant turn for the better. Ji Yufei did not move and watched Wang Long and the others search Qi Hao and the others. Their harvest was not bad, they found 5 innate realm weapons. These were the weapons that Wang Long and the others urgently needed. Innate realm weapons were already spirit tools and were no longer within the scope of ordinary weapons. A spirit tool's power was at least 10 times or even 10 times stronger than an ordinary tool. With a suitable spirit tool in hand, Wang Long and the others' combat power would multiply, and their chances of winning the entrance test would also greatly increase. Brother, it's all thanks to you this time. You can choose these weapons first. Wang Long placed the 5 spirit tools in front of Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei couldn't help nodding inside. This fatty Wang was very reliable. For a friend, he was willing to fight with his life on the line and didn't hesitate to challenge Qi Hao. If it was someone else, they wouldn't have such courage. Wang Long was a peak Hutian expert, but he dared to challenge a Xiantian expert like Qi Hao. That was no different from courting death. It was very rare to see someone willing to risk their life for a friend. I'll pass. You can have them if you want. Ji Yufei shook his head. He even had a extreme Dao Saint item, so he naturally wouldn't care about a few spirit tools. It had to be known that spirit tools could be said to be the lowest level of weapons. What, you don't want them? Wang Long and the others were startled. These were spirit tools, but Ji Yufei actually didn't want them. Did he have a better weapon? Thinking of how Ji Yufei had easily defeated Qi Hao, Wang Long and the others understood. They had already guessed that Ji Yufei definitely came from an amazing cultivation clan. Perhaps Ji Yufei came from a cultivation clan. There were countless cultivation clans within the territory ruled by the Ying Tianzong. These cultivation clans naturally couldn't compare to the Ying Tianzong, and the disciples of those cultivation clans were proud to enter the Ying Tianzong. In truth, those cultivation clans were also established by the Ying Tianzong's disciples. They were inextricably linked to the Ying Tianzong. But even the disciples of those cultivation clans had to pass the entrance trial to enter the Ying Tianzong. There were no backdoors. Brother Ji Yu, then we won't be polite. Ling Feng said as he picked up a battle spear, Yang Zhon picked up an ancient sword, and Wang Long picked up a great blade. As for the remaining 2 spirit artifacts, one was a bronze rod and the other was a bronze axe. Wang Long put away the rod and bronze axe, then they left the place. One had to know that Qi Hao died here. The Ying Tianzong's immortals had already spread the word that no one was allowed to kill within the Ying Tianzong's territory. Of course, Wang Long's group didn't kill Qi Hao's group. However, the white-clothed fairy had already left. If others saw them together with Qi Hao's corpse, then it would truly be hard to explain. If they were stripped of their qualifications to participate in the entrance trial because of this, then Wang Long's group would truly be wronged. Ji Yufei's group continued on their way. They were mortals, so they had to walk step by step towards the Ying Tianzong's lower court. This was actually a kind of trial. If someone gave up midway, they would lose the chance to participate in the trial. Every time the Ying Tian sect accepted disciples, there would be many people who couldn't take the hardship and gave up in the end. It seemed as if all the youths in the world were heading towards the Ying Tianzong to become a disciple, but there weren't many who actually passed the test. Ji Yufei's group would occasionally encounter savage beasts as they walked through the mountain ridges. These savage beasts were also unlucky to encounter Gu Fei's group. They could only be eaten by Gu Fei's group. 12 hours later, Gu Fei's group arrived outside a valley. Roar. As soon as they stopped, a roar was heard. A ferocious tiger rushed out of the valley and pounced on Wang Long, who was at the front. What? Wang Long was startled and quickly dodged to the side. At the same time, Ling Feng's spear stabbed towards the tiger. The spear couldn't pierce through the tiger's body. Everyone was dumbfounded. What kind of tiger was this? It was actually impervious to swords and spears. Roar. The tiger raised its head to the sky and let out a long roar, its voice shaking the void. A violent power erupted from the tiger's body. It leapt up from the ground and pounced towards Gu Fei. "Brother Gu, be careful." Wang Long and the others quickly shouted. Chapter 3675. Outside the Primogenitor Mountain in the Primogenitor Realm, the Yingtian sect opened its gate to recruit disciples and attracted young cultivators from all directions to participate in the sect's entrance trial. After Gu Fei left the Primogenitor Mountain range, he turned into a Xiantian cultivator and mixed in with the young cultivators who wanted to join the Yingtian sect to participate in the sect's entrance trial. The Yingtian sect was a small sect without a supreme great ancestor, but it had a vast territory under its control. Even if an ordinary person spent their entire life, they would not be able to cross the territory ruled by the Yingtian sect. However, the Yingtian sect was divided into the Ancestral Gate, 12 subsects, and 36 courtyards. The 36 courtyards were located in various important places within the sect's territory. The Yingtian sect's courtyard outside the Primogenitor Mountain range was ranked last among the 36 courtyards, which meant that it was the last place. The location of the Yingtian sect's courtyard was not good because it was close to the Primogenitor Mountain range. It was worth noting that an extreme-grade venerable beast lived deep inside the mountain range. An extreme-grade venerable beast could contend with an extreme-grade venerable beast. There were not many humans living outside the Primogenitor Mountain range, and the number of humans was definitely incomparable to other regions. Even so, there were still millions of young cultivators who rushed to the Yingtian sect's courtyard day and night. Among them, many unlucky fellas directly became ferocious beasts' food. Not all of the millions of young men and women could make it to the Yingtian sect's entrance trial, which was held once in a decade. As such, some of them were forever stuck on the road. At that moment, Gu Fei and his companions arrived outside a ravine and encountered a ferocious tiger. The ferocious tiger was quite unlucky because it set its eyes on Gu Fei and pounced on Gu Fei. As such, the king of beasts met with tragedy. The ferocious tiger leaped over Gu Fei's head, then it laid on the ground and stopped moving. Blood seeped out from under the tiger's body. "Brother Gu, that's amazing. This ferocious tiger can definitely resist a Xiantian realm cultivator." Ling Feng was shocked when he saw the ferocious tiger on the ground. "Haha, we don't have to go hungry tonight." Wang Long laughed. At this time, he looked at the sky. It was time to find a place to spend the night. It was not easy to spend the night in the mountains. After all, the snakes, insects, rats, and ants that hid during the day would come out at night. There was no shortage of poisonous insects and snakes in the mountain ridges. Poisonous scorpions also liked to come out at night, and some extremely poisonous spiders were even more terrifying. If bitten, even a Xiantian cultivator would die. Soon, Wang Long found a cave at the back of the valley. Bones were scattered all over the ground outside the cave. Wang Long and the others carefully walked into the cave, only to find a corpse inside. It was the corpse of a young man. His neck had been bitten off by a fierce tiger, and he had died here. Poor fellow. Wang Long and the others couldn't help but sigh at the sight of the corpse. In order to become experts, to become omnipotent immortals, countless people had fallen in this mountain range. They couldn't retreat. In the primogenitor's realm, only by becoming experts would they be able to survive. Gu Fei was following behind them, indifferently watching everything. The things he had experienced weren't something Wang Long and the others could imagine. At this time, Ling Feng walked out, and very quickly, he dragged the fierce tiger's corpse back, and everyone started a fire in the cave. Ling Feng and Yang Zhon directly cut the tiger into 8 pieces and roasted its legs over the fire. The tiger meat was quickly roasted to a shiny golden color. When the fat dripped onto the fire, it made a sizzling sound. An appetizing meaty aroma filled the cave. "We're in luck today, haha." As Wang Long spoke, he took out his machete and cut off a piece of roasted tiger leg that weighed 7 to 8 catties. Then, he handed it to Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei didn't say anything. He directly took the roasted meat and ate it in large bites. He then took out a jar of wine from the bag beside him and ate the meat and wine in large gulps. He felt very refreshed. Only with wine and meat can one truly enjoy life. Wang Long took the wine jar from Ji Yufei, raised his head, and took a big gulp. Then, he passed the wine jar to Yang Zhon. Yang Zhon naturally did not stand on ceremony and took a big gulp. Ling Feng, on the other hand, only cared about the meat. This kind of beast meat contained spiritual energy, and the more he ate, the better it would be for a cultivator. However, the wine Ji Yufei drank wasn't ordinary. It was very beneficial to cultivators, but Wang Long and the others didn't notice it. Not long after, they ate and drank their fill. They then sat down to recuperate in preparation for the next day. There was a time limit for going to the side courtyard of Yingtian sect. The gate of Yingtian sect would be open for 10 days. Within these 10 days, only the teenagers or young people who arrived at the side courtyard of Yingtian sect were qualified to participate in the entrance trial. Wang Long and the others had been walking in the mountains for 8 days. They still had 2 days left. At their current speed, they would definitely be able to make it in time. Ji Yufei also sat cross-legged on a large rock. He looked at Wang Long and the others, but he remembered his own experience. Back in the Taishan sect, he had desperately wanted to become a strong cultivator. Now, the Taishan sect was long gone. He didn't know if his senior brother had returned to the human realm. Li Lingfeng wanted to rebuild the Taishan sect, and Ji Yufei definitely supported this matter. Now that Ren Huangjiang was in charge of the human realm, there shouldn't be any major events. However, in the human realm, Ji Yufei had too many enemies, and it was full of uncertainties. Ji Yufei thought of the old turtle in the heaven realm. He didn't know how that guy was doing in the heaven realm. Would Yuan Jiyu jump out and fight with him for territory? These were also uncertain factors. There were also the descendants of the sky demon, the descendants of the Buddhist sects, and the little monk Fan Xiu, who was as black-bellied as He Tian, probably thinking of ways to cheat him. The water in the human realm was very deep, and the water in the heaven realm was also very deep. As for the ancestral god realm, it had almost been conquered by him. However, this ancestral god realm gave Ji Yufei a very oppressive feeling. The ancestral god realm was different from any other world. Because this was the source of all worlds, it was the most perfect and flawless world, and it was also the largest world. Ji Yufei thought of his daughter and disciple who had set foot on the ancient road of the human race. He didn't know how they were doing. The only thing he could be sure of was that they were still alive. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Wang Long and the others continued to roast the tiger meat that they hadn't eaten last night. After a full meal, they left the cave, left the valley, and continued on their way to the side courtyard of Yingtian sect. At this time, they could already see the celestial mountain floating in the sky. That was where the side courtyard of Yingtian sect was located. Haha, we're almost there. Brothers, let's work harder. Success is right in front of us. Wang Long laughed loudly. He was incomparably excited. However, in order to join Yingtian sect, they must first pass the entrance test. Otherwise, they could only return home. At noon, Ji Yufei, Wang Long, and the others were less than 100 miles away from the side courtyard of Yingtian sect. At this time, there were more and more people in the surroundings. These people were all teenagers or young adults. Ji Yufei didn't see any elderly cultivators. Looking at the celestial mountain floating high in the sky, everyone was incomparably excited. Of course, that was except for one person. That person was Ji Yufei. He sensed an incomparably powerful aura from the celestial mountain in front of him. In the palace at the peak of the celestial mountain, there was actually the aura of an immortal emperor. The hall master of Yingtian sect was actually an immortal emperor. Of course, an immortal emperor was nothing in the eyes of Ji Yufei. A single slap from him could kill a large number of them. Hey! Isn't that the fatty from the Wang family? Why? Even a fatty wants to participate in the entrance test. Suddenly, a voice came from the side. Wang Long and the others were startled by the sudden voice. They quickly turned around and saw a few black-robed youths staring at them from under a big tree a few dozen feet away. They seemed to be up to no good. Lei Dong. Wang Long couldn't help being startled when he saw the black-robed youth. This youth came from the Lei family, which was even more powerful than the Qi family. The Lei family couldn't be compared to the Qi family. The Lei family was a cultivation family with an immortal. This Lei Dong had a big brother called Lei Zhan. This Lei Zhan had successfully joined Yingtian sect during the entrance test 10 years ago. 10 years later, no one knew how powerful this Lei Zhan had become. Moreover, the Lei family and Yingtian sect were inextricably linked. There was no doubt that the immortal of the Lei family came from Yingtian sect. Fatty Wang, I think you guys should just go back obediently. You're not even an Xiantian expert. You're just asking to be humiliated by coming here. A black-robed youth beside Lei Dong said disdainfully to Wang Long. You guys. Wang Long and the others were both shocked and angered. These guys actually told them to go back. The mountain gate of Yingtian sect was right in front of them. What, is it that my words are no longer effective? The black-robed youth called Lei Dong was somewhat displeased. Brother Lei, this is a little too much. Ling Feng spoke. He stared at the black-robed youth and clenched the spear in his hand. He actually wanted to challenge Lei Dong. Reckless. Lei Dong shook his head helplessly and walked forward. There's no need to use a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. Brother Lei, just let us drive them away. A black-robed youth smiled and walked forward from behind Lei Dong. Brother Ji Yu, this, Yang Zhon looked at Ji Yufei and said. Just a bunch of clowns. It's a small matter. Ji Yufei said disapprovingly. What did you say? Who are you calling clowns? Lei Dong's face immediately darkened. Since his debut, no one had ever dared to call him a clown. This guy really had guts. Come at me together. Ji Yufei smiled coldly and hooked his finger at Lei Dong. At this time, a purple-robed girl was watching everything unblinkingly from afar. Chapter 3676. Ji Yufei's group was only 100 miles away from Ying Tian sect's courtyard. Everyone was very excited because they would soon be able to reach the courtyard and participate in the sect's entrance trial. However, at this time, Ji Yufei's group was targeted by Lei Dong of the Lei clan. Lei Dong was not someone Qi Hao and the others could compare to. One must know that Lei Dong was a descendant of an immortal. All of you come at me together. Ji Yufei did not want to waste time with these guys and directly hooked his finger at Lei Dong. What? Lei Dong smiled. He smiled very happily. Brat, do you know who you are talking to? A young man beside Lei Dong stood up. Brother Lei, this guy is mine. I want him to know what it means to wish for death. That young man stared at Ji Yufei and said fiercely. Sigh, I can't even act tough. Ji Yufei sighed helplessly. Haha, you want to act tough? I specialize in acting tough. That young man laughed and directly charged at Ji Yufei. Brother Ji Yu, be careful. This guy is called Tsun Tokishi, a famous smiling tiger, vicious and merciless. Wang Long warned Ji Yufei. A smiling tiger? Why does he look more like a smiling cat? Ji Yufei said with disdain. Go to hell. The black-clothed young man, Tsun Tokishi, leaped up with a hideous grin and slammed his palm towards Ji Yufei. A violent palm force immediately surged out from his palm, stirring up a strong gale on the ground. The fallen leaves on the ground were swept up into the air and danced in the air. A bit imposing. Ji Yufei nodded and said. This fellow was actually a Xiantian expert. The palm of this fellow had actually turned pitch black with black qi lingering around it. It's a venomous sand palm. Ling Feng cried out in shock. Brother Ji Yu, be careful of his palm. Do not let it touch you. Yang Zhon shouted at Ji Yufei. Bang! Ji Fei directly punched out, his fist instantly colliding with Tsun Tokishi's venomous sand palm. Not good. Wang Long and the others were dumbfounded. Brother Ji you. Yang Zhon never imagined that after receiving his warning, Ji Fei would still dare to touch Tsun Tokishi's palm. Wasn't this courting death? Hehe, Brother Lei, it seems we've run into an idiot. A young man in black next to Lei Dong looked at Ji Fei with a gloating expression. So silly, haha. Another black-robed youth sneered. However, at that moment, Tsun Tokishi's expression changed. The black chi on his palm was actually spreading up his arm. Soon, even his face darkened. Bam! Ji Fei's fist shook and Tsun Tokishi was immediately sent flying. He landed on the ground and staggered for a moment before stabilizing himself. Ayo, why is your face so black? Ji Fei smiled. What? This time, it was Lei Dong and the others who were stunned. What's going on? He's fine. How is this possible? The two black-robed youths beside Lei Dong were dumbfounded. One must know that Tsun Tokishi's venomous sand palm was extremely terrifying. Even a bull would die instantly if it was struck by his palm. Even an Xiantian realm expert would be half dead if not dead after being struck by Tsun Tokishi's palm. Furthermore, no one had ever dared to take Tsun Tokishi's venomous sand palm head-on. At this moment, an even more shocking scene appeared. Tsun Tokishi's body swayed and he vomited a mouthful of blood. He fell to the ground, twitched a few times, and then stopped breathing. This, in a flash, Lei Dong came to Tsun Tokishi's side. Tsun Tokishi's 7 orifices were bleeding, and he was already dead. You killed Tsun Tokishi. Lei Dong turned around and glared at Ji Fei. Tsun Tokishi is dead. The other two black-robed youths were shocked and came to Tsun Tokishi's corpse. Seeing the state of Tsun Tokishi's death, their hearts palpitated. Tsun Tokishi is actually dead. Wang Long and the others were also in disbelief. One must know that Tsun Tokishi was a Xiantian expert and cultivated the insidious venomous sand palm. To be able to kill Tsun Tokishi with one punch, could it be that Ji Fei's cultivation had already surpassed the Xiantian realm? According to Ji Fei's understanding, the realm above the Xiantian realm was the Imperial Void Realm. Cultivators in this realm could soar into the sky and fly. You actually dared to kill someone in Ying Tianzong's territory? Lei Dong gritted his teeth. TCH, who said I killed him? He just poisoned himself to death. Ji Fei said disdainfully. What did you say? Lei Dong couldn't help but be shocked. This fella was very powerful. He actually forced the poison of Tsun Tokishi's venomous sand palm back into Tsun Tokishi's body, causing him to die. The other black-robed youth was also stunned when he heard Ji Fei's words. Tsun Tokishi really did die from poison. Even if Ying Tianzong's immortals came, Ji Fei wouldn't be afraid. You deserve to die. Lei Dong was enraged, truly enraged. With a flip of his right hand, a spear immediately appeared in his hand. He shook the spear and thrust it towards Ji Fei. The spearhead of Lei Dong's spear turned into a speck of cold light and instantly pierced towards Ji Fei's forehead. Careful! Wang Long shouted. However, that speck of cold light actually stopped in front of Ji Fei's forehead. It was just a little bit away, but it couldn't move anymore. Ji Fei had actually used 2 fingers to clamp down on Lei Dong's spear. What? Everyone was shocked. Ji Fei actually used 2 fingers to block Lei Dong's spear. How was this possible? It was unbelievable. The most shocked person was still Lei Dong. He never expected this inconspicuous fella to be so powerful. Tsun Tokishi's death wasn't undeserved. Roar! Lei Dong roared as all the power in his body surged into the spear in his hand. In the next moment, a series of crackling sounds could be heard as a layer of lightning appeared on the spear. A destructive aura spread out from the spear. Lightning-type cultivation method. Ji Fei was a little surprised. This Lei Dong was not only surnamed Lei, but he also cultivated in lightning-type cultivation methods. It seemed like Lei Dong came from a Thunder Immortal clan. Ji Fei didn't care about this lightning at all. No matter how Lei Dong used his power, his 2 fingers that were clamping the spearhead did not move at all. Wang Long and the others were all stunned, their jaws were about to drop to the ground. Ji Yufei's battle strength had already far exceeded everyone's expectations, especially Wang Long and the others. They sadly realized that they had still severely underestimated Ji Yufei's cultivation and battle strength. To be able to make such a powerful friend, Wang Long and the others felt that they were quite lucky. Crack! Just at this moment, Ji Yufei's 2 fingers that were clamping the spearhead used some force, and the spearhead was actually broken. With a wave of his right hand, the broken spearhead instantly turned into a cold light that directly pierced through Lei Yidong's right shoulder. Lei Yidong screamed as he flew backwards, the spear in his hand flying out. In the next moment, he heavily crashed into the trunk of a large tree and vomited a mouthful of blood. I told you all to attack together, but you didn't believe me. Look, you're out of luck now. Ji Yufei said helplessly. You. The other 2 black-clothed youths looked at Ji Yufei in fear. If even Lei Yidong wasn't his match, then they definitely weren't his match. They hurriedly rushed towards Lei Yidong and helped him up from the tree. They pathetically ran away, not even caring about Tsun Tokish's corpse. Ji Yufei didn't chase after them. He didn't care about these clowns at all. Of course, if he wanted to, he could directly kill his way to the Ying Sky Sect's ancestral gate and annihilate the entire sect. However, this would startle those extreme grade supremes. He had to keep a low profile before his tribulation. It wasn't good to be too high profile. No matter what, he had to become a extreme Dao supremes before he could be high profile. Brother Ji Yu, are we just going to let these fellows go like this? Ling Feng said worriedly. These fellows won't be able to cause any waves. Ji Yufei said. Let's go as well. Wang Long said. The Ying Sky Sect side courtyard was just 100 miles away. As long as they arrived on time, they would be qualified to participate in the sect's entrance trial. They had less than 2 days left. According to their speed, they definitely had enough time. They wouldn't miss the entrance trial. But it would be hard to say if they ran into any accidents on the way. Ji Yufei and the rest didn't touch Chang Wei's corpse. This fellow's corpse was covered in poison. It wouldn't be good even if they touched it. They dug a pit and buried Chang Wei. They continued on their way and met many cultivators along the way. These people only had one goal, and that was to enter the Ying Sky Sect side courtyard before the time limit was up. Just as Ji Yufei and the rest left, a young girl walked over from afar. She came to the place where Chang Wei was buried and took a look. Then, she followed behind Ji Yufei and the rest. In fact, many people saw the scene of Lei Yidong being defeated by Ji Yufei. They were all shocked, especially those who knew Lei Yidong. The Thunder Clan was quite influential in the Ying Sky Sect side courtyard. Lei Yidong was an outstanding talent among the younger generation of the Thunder Clan. He was already an innate expert at such a young age. He wasn't inferior to his brother, Lei Yizhen. He was one of the most promising disciples to enter the Ying Sky Sect side courtyard. But now, Lei Yidong was injured by Ji Yufei. Even if he could reach the side courtyard on time, it would be difficult for him to pass the entrance trial. Brother Ji Yu, you've gotten yourself into big trouble. Ling Feng said worriedly. What do you mean? Ji Yufei said, somewhat baffled. It's like this. Lei Yidong has a big brother who entered the Ying Tian sect 10 years ago and became a disciple of the Ying Tian sect's monastery. You injured Lei Yidong, so his big brother definitely won't let this matter rest. Yong Zhon explained. TCH, I thought it was something serious. It's just a small matter, don't worry. Ji Yufei said disapprovingly. Chapter 3677. The fact that Ji Yufei had injured Lei Yidong frightened Wang Long and the rest. One should know that Lei Yidong came from a clan that had an immortal overseeing it. His background was incomparably deep, not something that their clan could compare to. More importantly, Lei Yidong had an older brother in the Ying Tian sect's courtyard. Offending Lei Yidong would result in his brother Lei Yizhen's revenge. What should they do? Wang Long and the others were very worried. After all, Lei Yizhen had already entered the Ying Tian sect's courtyard and became a disciple when the Ying Tian sect opened its doors 10 years ago. It was not hard to imagine that even if Wang Long and the others successfully passed the Ying Tian sect's entrance test and became a disciple, it would be very difficult for them to make a name for themselves. However, to Ji Yufei, this was not even worth mentioning. He didn't care at all. "Brother, you guys sure are cool. You even dared to touch Lei Dong." A youth in purple came over to strike up a conversation. "F***ck off, I'm annoyed." Wang Long roared at the guy. The man shrugged and hurriedly walked away. At this time, many people walked out from the mountain and onto the mountain path towards the Ying Tian sect's courtyard. Only now were they relatively safe. The mountain path was rugged, but these youths all had some skills. To know that only those at the peak of the post-celestial and post-celestial levels had the right to participate in the Ying Tian sect's entrance test. Even so, countless people were eliminated. They only had one chance, a chance to become a fish that leaped through the dragon's gate. If they missed this chance, these youths could only drown in the torrent of time and live their lives in obscurity. Of course, everyone had their own opportunities. Even if they couldn't enter the Ying Tian sect, they would still have another chance to become an immortal. However, only 1 in 10,000 could have such a fortuitous encounter. At this time, the news of Wang Long's group injuring Lei Dong had already spread. Some people were gloating, others were unhappy. Very quickly, someone came looking for them. 3 youths in green appeared on the mountain path and blocked Wang Long's path. They did not come with good intentions. Who was it that defeated Lei Dong? "Come out." The leader was a young man with white teeth and red lips. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked arrogantly at Ji Yufei and the others. "Who are you, you yellow-haired brat? Your old man is annoyed. If you know what's good for you, you'd better scram." Ling Feng stood up. He was very displeased to see this little fellow acting so arrogantly. "Even a little brat can bully us. This is preposterous." Yang Zhon shouted angrily. "Who are you calling a wimpy brat? All of you deserve to die." When the green-clothed youth heard Ling Feng and Yang Zhon's words, he became quite angry. One had to know that he was an existence that everyone in the family revolved around. These people actually dared to mock him. Although he couldn't kill them here, he had to teach them a lesson. "Go. Cripple them for me. Don't let them die." The green-robed youth roared. "Yes, young master." The 2 youths behind the green-robed youth immediately accepted the order and fiercely pounced towards Wang Long and the rest. They did not care who injured Lei Dong, they wanted to cripple all of them. "TCH, who do you think you are? You think you can cripple anyone you want?" Wang Long didn't think much of it. As he spoke, he took a step forward and slashed forward with his saber. A sharp saber energy immediately rushed out from the saber and slashed towards a young cultivator who was charging at him. The formless blade aura quickly slashed through the air, creating a sharp piercing sound. The young cultivator's figure flashed to evade the incoming blade beam. Next, he sent a palm strike towards Wang Long. A formidable palm blast spread out, causing the sand and stones on the mountain path to fly about. "Impudent!" Ling Feng shouted. He raised the spear in his hand and faced off against another young cultivator who was attacking him. A great battle broke out on the mountain path, which alarmed many people nearby. Those people were watching the battle from afar, pointing at each other from time to time, guessing who would win. These fellows actually dared to provoke the little overlord of the Feng clan. They must be tired of living. Someone sneered. They were not optimistic about Wang Long's group. "What is the Feng clan?" Ji Yufei muttered to himself. "Feng clan. That brat is actually the little overlord of the Feng clan." Yang Zhon's expression changed when he heard the surrounding people's words. Damn it, they had already offended Lei Dong, and now they had offended the little overlord of the Feng clan. How were they going to live? What little overlord of the Feng clan? Is he very powerful? Ji Yufei said disapprovingly. "Brother Ji Yu, sometimes I really wonder if you are someone from the outer region of the Primogenitor mountain range. You don't even know about the Feng clan?" Yang Zhon was speechless. Ji Yufei shrugged and said indifferently, "Do I need to know them?" Sigh. Yang Zhon was completely speechless this time. "All right, I won't tease you anymore. They can't hold on any longer. Ji Yufei said. What? Yang Zhon quickly looked forward and saw that Wang Long and Ling Feng were indeed unable to hold on and were forced to retreat. The cultivation of those two green-clothed youths was actually very powerful. Even if Wang Long and Ling Feng had spirit tools, they were not a match for them. Feng Yu, what do you want? Yang Zhon said to the green-clothed youth. Haha, are you afraid now? This young master doesn't want anything, I just want to cripple you. Don't worry, this young master won't kill you. The Feng clan's little overlord laughed. Damn it! Yang Zhon roared. This fellow was simply a madman. The Feng clan and Lei clan did not have any relationship. Why did this Feng Yu want to help Lei Dong? Bang! At this moment, a muffled sound rang out. Wang Long's saber was actually slapped by the green-clothed youth, causing him to retreat along with his saber. Ling Feng's left shoulder was also punched by the other green-clothed youth. The sound of bones breaking rang out and Ling Feng was directly sent flying. He landed on the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Ling Feng almost lost his grip on the spear in his hand and nearly flew out. Brother Ji Yu. Seeing this scene, Yang Zhon couldn't help but anxiously look at Ji Yufei. At this moment, Ji Yufei took a step forward. His entire body was like a mirage as he instantly appeared in front of the two pursuing youths. He made a circle with his hands. Yin and Yang were clearly separated. A yin-yang diagram appeared in the sky and the two youths involuntarily flew towards it. Bang! Bang! Chapter 3678. The Feng clan's little overlord, Feng Yu, had his eyes on Ji Yufei's group and blocked them on the mountain path. This Feng clan's little overlord was very domineering and overbearing. He actually wanted to cripple Ji Yufei's group just because of a disagreement. The two subordinates of this so-called Feng clan's little overlord were not weak either. They were both experts at the peak of the post-liminary realm. Wang Long and Ling Feng were actually unable to stop them and were at a disadvantage. As such, Yang Zhon, who was watching from the side, was extremely shocked. Ji Yufei naturally would not just watch as Wang Long and the others were defeated by the Feng clan's guys. He immediately flashed and stood in front of the two Feng clan's disciples. Kill. The two Feng clan's cultivators immediately attacked Ji Yufei. One of them directly slapped towards Ji Yufei while the other young man flew up and kicked towards Ji Yufei's head. When the two of them joined hands, their power instantly multiplied. Haha. Ji Yufei laughed heartily. He stretched out his right hand and directly grabbed the leg of the green-clothed young man. After that, he swung the wheel and smashed it towards the other young man. The two green-robed young men immediately collided and rolled on the mountain path. For a moment, they could not even stand up. The spectators were immediately stunned when they saw this scene. The two green-robed cultivators were actually so easily defeated by this black-robed young man. The two green-robed cultivators were still majestic just a moment ago. But now, they were like two dead dogs lying on the mountain path. Damn it, who are you? You were the one who defeated Lei Dong, right? The Feng clan's little overlord angrily roared at Ji Yufei. His two subordinates were not weaklings. They were only half a step away from the post-liminary realm. Even Wang Long and Ling Feng were no match for these two. However, Ji Yufei defeated the two of them in one move. The combat strength that Ji Yufei had displayed was extremely shocking. You don't seem to have the qualifications to know who I am. Ji Yufei looked indifferently at the little overlord of the Wind Clan and said. At this moment, Feng Yu was both shocked and furious. He never thought that Ji Yufei's battle prowess would be so great. Even if a Xiantian realm cultivator were to make a move, it would still be impossible for him to defeat his two subordinates so easily. Haha, I don't have the qualifications to know. Feng Yu was so angry that he laughed. A powerful energy fluctuation immediately erupted from his body. At such a young age, his cultivation has already surpassed the Xiantian realm. No wonder he's so arrogant. Ji Yufei looked at Feng Yu and said indifferently. The Feng clan's little overlord's cultivation actually surpassed the Xiantian realm. All the spectating cultivators were shocked. The Wind Clan was a clan even more powerful than the Thunder Clan. The Wind Clan was said to be one of the higher-ups of Ying Tian sect's side courtyard. Therefore, the Feng clan's little overlord dared to be so unbridled. Of course, even so, the little overlord of the Feng clan did not dare to break Ying Tiansek's rules and kill people near Ying Tiansek's side courtyard. To be able to remain so calm even after knowing my cultivation level, I'm starting to admire you a little. Feng Yu stared at Ji Yu Fei and said coldly, "Che, a brat like you doesn't have the qualifications to make me nervous." Ji Yu Fei said disapprovingly, "I'm going to kill you." Feng Yu was infuriated. He roared and immediately disappeared. In the next moment, he appeared in front of Ji Yu Fei and punched towards Ji Yu Fei's face. Feng Yu's punch was very powerful, and it let out a piercing sound that caused people's hearts to palpitate. However, Ji Yu Fei only stretched out his hand and caught the incoming fist. What? Feng Yu's shock was no small matter. A violent force burst out from his fist as he tried to shake off his opponent's hand. However, his opponent's hand did not budge at all. In the next moment, Feng Yu's body flew up and was thrown away by Ji Yu Fei. Bang! Feng Yu's body was like a meteorite as he ruthlessly smashed into a stone mountain 1,000 feet away. The entire stone mountain instantly crumbled. Rocks scattered in all directions, and dust rose into the sky. Roar! An angry roar resounded. In the next moment, a figure rushed out from the dust that covered the sky. That person was Feng Yu. He immediately turned into a gust of astral wind and rushed towards Ji Yu Fei. Formless wind blades covered the sky as they slashed towards Ji Yu Fei. It was incomparably terrifying. Ji Yu Fei soared into the sky and actually crashed into the countless wind blades. When those wind blades landed on his body, they all collapsed and didn't even leave a scratch on his clothes. How is this possible? This time, Feng Yu couldn't help but be shocked. Before he could finish his thoughts, Ji Yu Fei had already arrived in front of him and grabbed his neck. "You." Feng Yu had never been in such a sorry state since he started his cultivation. He couldn't help but burst into tears. "Ha ha, crying when you can't win. You're still a brat." Ji Yu Fei laughed and said, "As long as I don't die, there will be a day when I surpass you." Feng Yu roared, "Ambitious, but it's a pity that you won't be able to surpass me in this lifetime." Ji Yu Fei shook his head and said with a smile that didn't seem like a smile, "What did you say?" Feng Yu looked at Ji Yu Fei with incomparable shock. "All right, I'm not going to play with you anymore. If those old friends of mine knew that I bullied a kid, they would probably laugh at me to death." Ji Yu Fei sighed and shook his head helplessly. At this moment, everyone who saw this scene was dumbfounded. Who was that person to actually defeat the little overlord of the Feng clan? That was an expert that surpassed the Xiantian realm. Surpassing the Xiantian realm wasn't an immortal god, but an expert that could fly. Above that was the demigod realm, and above that was the immortal god realm. Only immortal gods could live forever. These human youths outside the Primogenitor Mountain only had one goal: to become an immortal god and an existence that was even more powerful than an immortal god. In the ancestral god realm, immortal gods were as numerous as the hair on a cow. There were even many supremes and mortals. The ancestral god realm was the biggest world among all the worlds. One must know that the ancestral god realm was the origin of all worlds, the source of the heavenly punishment. Even the supremes didn't know how many races and living beings there were in the ancestral god realm. What terrified Ji Yu Fei was that there might be an existence that was even more powerful than the supremes in the ancestral god realm. Of course, this was only Ji Yu Fei's guess. Everything was possible in the ancestral god realm. Ji Yu Fei then released Feng Yu and flew down from the sky to meet up with Wang Long and the rest. Feng Yu took a deep look at Ji Yu Fei. He didn't care about his two subordinates that were still lying on the mountain path and flew towards Yingtian-sek's courtyard, disappearing in the sky. At this moment, Wang Long and the rest became even more pessimistic. "It's over, it's over. We're really done for this time. How are we going to participate in the entrance trial after offending Feng Yu?" Chapter 3679. Ji Yu Fei easily defeated the Feng clan's Feng Yu. Everyone was dumbfounded. No one expected this black-clothed youth to be so powerful. The black-clothed youth didn't put Feng Yu and the Feng clan in his eyes at all. At this time, Wang Long's group was in a tragedy. Offending Lei Dong was already bad enough. Lei Dong's big brother was a disciple of the Ying Tian sect. But compared to Ji Yufei defeating Feng Yu, Lei Dong's matter was nothing. The Feng clan had people who had reached the upper echelons of the Ying Tian sect's monastery. Now that they had offended Feng Yu, wouldn't they have no way to enter the Ying Tian sect? Wang Long's group was very pessimistic, but Ji Yufei didn't care. He was just playing around. It didn't matter if he could enter the Ying Tian sect or not. After the Feng clan left, Ji Yufei's group continued on their way. It was very peaceful along the way. No one from the Lei clan or the Feng clan came to cause trouble. The news of Ji Yufei defeating Feng Yu had already spread. Who would dare to cause trouble for Ji Yufei's group? Without any surprises, Ji Yufei and the others arrived at the mountain gate of Ying Tian sect's side courtyard at the appointed time. Just as they arrived at the mountain gate, there were already many young cultivators gathered outside the mountain gate. Ji Yufei looked around and saw many young cultivators gathered in the open space outside the mountain gate. They didn't expect so many people to arrive here before them. Moreover, there were still more young cultivators arriving. Ji Yufei's group found a place to sit down and took out some food to eat. At this time, it was almost night. Suddenly, a white-robed immortal walked out of the mountain gate. This immortal was surrounded by immortal energy, and his body was faintly glowing with immortal light. Everyone listen up. After entering the gate, don't wander around. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. The white-robed immortal's voice wasn't loud, but it was clearly heard by all the young cultivators outside the gate. We can enter the gate. The thousands of young cultivators gathered outside the mountain gate were overjoyed. At this moment, the mountain gate opened and a world of immortals and gods was opening its doors to them. Then, under the guidance of some green-robed disciples, the young cultivators outside the mountain gate directly rushed into the mountain gate. Ji Yufei and the others were not in a hurry to enter the mountain gate. They saw that Lei Dong had also entered the mountain gate. When he entered the mountain gate, Lei Dong even turned around to look at Ji Yufei, his gaze filled with viciousness. This fellow. Ji Yufei shook his head helplessly. Brother Ji Yu, what should we do? Wang Long looked at Ji Yufei with a worried expression. That's right. Brother Ji Yu, this Lei Dong isn't a good person. He will definitely take revenge on us. Ling Feng also said. Who cares? Our lives are worthless. If that Lei Dong dares to take revenge on us, we will fight it out with him. At the very most, we will just die. Even if we die, I will still be a good man 20 years later. Yang Zhon ruthlessly said. Ji Yufei glanced at Yang Zhon and couldn't help nodding inwardly. This Yang Zhon was still very reliable and had some guts. Wang Long and Ling Feng were a bit inferior. That's true, but Urari, Wang Long said with a sigh. Oh, that's Feng Yu. He also entered the mountain gate. Yang Zhon suddenly exclaimed. Ji Yufei smiled and didn't say anything. In truth, he had long since sensed Feng Yu's existence. This Feng Yu had always been secretly watching Ji Yufei's group. After Feng Yu entered the mountain gate, he directly disappeared inside. Different situations call for different actions. Let's go in as well. After saying that, Ji Yufei stood up and walked into the mountain gate. Yang Zhon didn't hesitate and directly chased after Ji Yufei. Together with Ji Yufei, they directly entered the mountain gate. Wang Long and Ling Feng glanced at each other and also quickly chased after Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon. They then entered the mountain gate of the Ying Tian sect's side courtyard. The young cultivators who were able to enter the side courtyard on time were led to a pavilion by an azure-robed disciple. This was the temporary residence of the young cultivators participating in the entrance trial. Looking at the large number of pavilions in front of them, all the young cultivators were dumbfounded. This was the means of an immortal clan. No matter how many cultivators came to participate in the entrance trial, they would still be able to live here. There weren't many human settlements outside the Primogenitor mountain range, but there were still tens of thousands of young cultivators who arrived at the Ying Tian sect on time. Tens of thousands of young cultivators gathered in the side courtyard, preparing to participate in the sect's once-a-decade entrance trial. Jiu Fei was very curious about how the sect would test these tens of thousands of young cultivators and how many of them would be able to pass and become a true disciple of the sect. However, there was one thing that Jiu Fei knew. Among these tens of thousands of young cultivators, most of them would definitely be eliminated in the trial. Most of them could only return home. Of course, there were also many who died in the trial. Jiu Fei didn't care that much. He directly chose a pavilion and moved in. Wang Long and the others had no choice but to follow Jiu Fei into the pavilion. At this time, they could only follow Jiu Fei all the way to the dark. Jiu Fei discovered that Lei Dong and Feng Yu didn't live in this area. These two obviously went through the back door. However, everyone had to participate in the Ying Tian sect's entrance trial. Even if Lei Dong and Feng Yu had people in the side courtyard, they couldn't be absent. The immortal aura inside Ying Tian sect was clearly much stronger than outside. The entire Ying Tian sect's side courtyard was probably enveloped by a great spirit gathering formation. The side courtyard on the ground was where some of the lower-level disciples cultivated, while the upper echelons lived on the immortal mountain in the sky. The immortal energy on the mountain floating in the sky became even more powerful. At this time, within a hall on the mountain, the upper echelons of the Ying Tian monastery were discussing the matters of the entrance trial. How are the preparations going? The hall master directly asked the upper echelons in the hall. Everything is ready. We can start at any time. An old man stood up and said. Very good. The hall master nodded. However, the difficulty of this year's trial will increase by quite a bit. I expect many people will be eliminated. Another elder added. Increasing the difficulty is inevitable. Our Ying Tian sect is also starting to walk the path of elites. This kind of reform is something that must be carried out. The hall master glanced at everyone before saying this. The upper echelons in the hall nodded inwardly. This was something decided by the ancestors of the ancestral gate. No one dared to have any objections. Who would dare go against the ancestors? Feng Ting, I'll leave this matter to you. The hall master looked at a tall and fierce-looking middle-aged man. Yes, hall master. The elder called Feng Ting hastily replied. Then everyone can disperse. The hall master waved his hand and stood up, walking into the back of the hall. The upper echelons of the Yingtian courtyard also dispersed after that. At this time, Feng Ting's heart was a bit heavy. He hadn't expected the hall master to make him responsible for the entrance trial this time. However, he had already received the news that one of his clan's disciples had been defeated outside the mountain. And he was the one in charge of the entrance trial this time. He was very curious as to who could defeat Feng Yu. Feng Yu was the most outstanding disciple of the Feng clan in 100 years. Feng Yu was definitely a monstrous existence in the Feng clan. At such a young age, his cultivation had already surpassed the Xiantian realm, but he had still been defeated. This year's entrance trial will be very intense. Feng Ting muttered to himself. After leaving the hall, he returned to his residence. At this time, Feng Yu was already waiting for him. Feng Yu greets Grand Uncle. Feng Yu immediately went to welcome Feng Ting when he returned. Rise, tell me what happened. Feng Ting asked in a deep voice as he sat down and looked at Feng Yu, who was kneeling at his feet. Grand Uncle, it was like this. Feng Yu told him what had happened. You're still young and impetuous. After listening to Feng Yu's story, Feng Ting suddenly sighed. The Feng clan and the Lei clan didn't have much of a relationship to begin with, yet Feng Yu wanted to stand up for Lei Dong. Wasn't this just asking for trouble? Leave everything to me, Feng Ting said. He wanted to see who the young man who defeated Feng Yu was. He wanted to see if he had 3 heads and 6 arms. With his support, Feng Yu would have no problem passing the entrance trial. Many thanks for your help, Grand Uncle. Feng Yu was very intelligent and naturally understood the meaning behind Feng Ting's words. All right, you can go back, Feng Ting said. Yes, Grand Uncle. Feng Yu hastily bowed to Feng Ting and then left. While Feng Yu was seeing his grand uncle, Lei Dong had also found his big brother, Lei Zhen. Lei Zhan had already become a white-robed disciple of the Ying Tian sect. No one knew better than Lei Dong what a white-robed disciple meant. Big brother, you've actually become an immortal. Lei Dong was both surprised and delighted to see his big brother. Lei Zhan directly threw a jade bottle to Lei Dong. There's a sacred healing pill inside. Take it and your injuries will quickly heal. Many thanks, big brother. Lei Dong took the jade bottle and opened it. He poured out a pill from the bottle and ate it in one gulp. In the next moment, a wave of heat spread from his abdomen to his limbs and bones. In just a moment, he felt his body brimming with inexhaustible energy. His previous injuries were quickly healing. Just who is that Jiyu Fei to be able to defeat you? And which other overlord of the Feng clan did he defeat? Lei Dong was very curious. Big brother, you'll be able to see that fellow very soon. Lei Dong clenched his teeth. That fellow had actually dared injure him. This enmity had to be avenged. Don't act rashly, understand? Lei Dong didn't want his brother to die to that person. Chapter 3680. Within the Ying Tian sect's 36 courtyards, the Primogenitor mountain range was the last of the 36 courtyards. All the youths and young cultivators within tens of thousands of miles had gathered here. The Ying Tian courtyard's entrance trial was about to begin. Countless young cultivators had arrived at the courtyard's mountain gate and stayed in the pavilions within the mountain gate. Jiyu Fei was also one of the tens of thousands of young cultivators. However, he had offended many people. Whether it was the Thunder Clan or the Wind Clan, they both had a certain amount of influence in the courtyard. At this time, Wang Long and the others were sighing. After offending the Thunder and Wind clans, they no longer had any hope of passing the Ying Tian sect's entrance trial. In fact, Wang Long, Ling Feng, and Yang Zhon all wanted to give up. However, they were already here, and they were unwilling to give up now. Jiyu Fei didn't care about what these guys were thinking. The Ying Tian sect's entrance trial was nothing to him. Brother Jiyu, sigh. Wang Long wanted to say something to Jiyu Fei, but he didn't say it in the end. Jiyu Fei also didn't say anything. He felt that there was a gap between him and Wang Long, especially between Wang Long and Ling Feng. On the other hand, Yang Zhon was a passionate and hot-blooded person. Yang Zhon was a sword cultivator, and it seemed that sword cultivators liked to be straightforward and didn't need to beat around the bush. Sword cultivators were born with a cold and arrogant temperament, and they disdained to engage in crafty schemes. Jiyu Fei had a very good impression of Yang Zhon. At this moment, Jiyu Fei's divine sense had enveloped the entire Ying Tian sect courtyard. No one could sense the existence of his divine sense. It should be known that his cultivation was even higher than the courtyard master of Ying Tian sect, so these people could not sense his existence at all. So many people actually came. Jiyu Fei sensed that there were no less than 100,000 young cultivators gathered in the Ying Tian side courtyard's mountain gate. This number shocked even him. Outside the Primogenitor mountain range was a boundless mountain range. There were not many places where humans lived. However, there were hundreds of thousands of young cultivators in such a place. This was unbelievable to him. And among these young cultivators, there were bound to be many who could pass the Ying Tian courtyard's entrance trial and become a disciple of the Ying Tian sect. The reason why the Ying Tian sect was able to prosper for so long was not without reason. This method of accepting disciples was definitely worth learning. Of course, this method of accepting disciples was not unique to Ying Tian sect. In fact, whether it was the primogenitor realm, the human world, the ancestral god realm, or the heavenly realm, there were countless sects and great sects that used this method to accept disciples. However, some transcendent sects wouldn't do such a thing. These sects were much stricter than ordinary sects when it came to accepting disciples. After nightfall, the entire courtyard of Ying Tian sect gradually quietened down. The disciples of Ying Tian sect were all cultivating. Countless strands of immortal Tao energy rose from the mountain gate on the ground of Ying Tian sect's side courtyard, and the immortal mountain in the sky emitted an even stronger strand of immortal Tao energy. Looks like the upper echelons of Ying Tian sect are all on the immortal mountain. Jiyu Fei sat cross-legged in his room. Everything within Ying Tian sect's side courtyard appeared in his mind. Everything was under his control. He sensed Lei Dong's aura, as well as Feng Yu's aura. These two were together with existences far stronger than them. The immortal with Lei Dong should be his elder brother, Lei Zhan. As for the person with Feng Yu, the aura emitted from his body was somewhat terrifying. This guy was actually a Saint King. A Sage King level existence was actually meeting Feng Yu. Needless to say, this Sage King was from the Feng clan. Otherwise, he wouldn't be meeting Feng Yu alone. Sage Kings were probably elder-level existences in Yingtian sect's side courtyard. The courtyard lord was only a Sage King. Whether it was Lei Dong or Feng Yu, neither of them knew that there was a pair of invisible eyes watching them from the void. An uneventful night passed. Early the next morning, Ji Yufei's group was called up by a green-robed disciple from Yingtian sect's side courtyard. They all gathered at a huge plaza within the mountain gate. There was a sea of people everywhere. Ji Yufei's group was immediately drowned in the crowd. All right, all of you listen up. The entrance trial is about to begin. You have 2 hours to prepare. A young immortal from Yingtian sect's side courtyard spoke to all the young cultivators on the plaza. His voice wasn't loud, but his words reached everyone's ears. It's finally about to begin. Everyone in the plaza was incomparably excited. However, it wasn't easy to pass the entrance trial. Moreover, this trial was dangerous. Quite a few people would lose their lives during each trial. At this time, Ji Yufei suddenly looked up at a floating cloud in the sky. Did he discover me? An elder on that cloud was startled. He had a vague bad feeling as he looked at Ji Yufei. His intuition told him that this Ji Yufei wasn't simple. The entrance trial was a major event for the Yingtian sect's side courtyard. As the elder in charge, Feng Ting naturally had to personally attend. He stepped on a floating cloud and descended from the sky. He landed on the high platform and sat on the throne. A powerful divine will spread out from his body and enveloped everyone in the square. Yes, quite a few good seedlings have appeared this year. Feng Ting nodded inside. 2 hours quickly passed. Time's up. The voice of the white-robed immortal on the high platform was heard by everyone in the square. The noisy square immediately quieted down. Everyone looked at the high platform excitedly. Begin. Feng Ting gave the order from his throne high in the sky. Yes, Lord Elder. The white-robed immortal hastily bowed to Feng Ting. Then with a wave of his right hand, 9 rays of immortal light flew out of his sleeve. 9 beams of immortal light landed on the ground. When the immortal light dissipated, 9 ancient stone doors appeared in front of everyone. Everyone was shocked when they saw this scene. Rumble. The 9 ancient doors slowly opened. Everyone stared at them as an aura that seemed to come from the primordial world spread out from behind them. Once you enter, the doors will close. 10 days later, they will open once more. During these 10 days, you only have one mission: to survive. Understood? The white-robed immortal loudly shouted at everyone participating in the entrance trial. Many people were dumbfounded. The plaza was completely silent. Those who wish to withdraw from this trial still have the chance to do so, said the white-robed immortal. Still, no one said anything. No one wanted to withdraw. Once they passed the entrance trial, they would be able to reach the heavens in a single step. No one was willing to miss out on such a chance. Very good. I now announce that the entrance trial begins, said the white-robed immortal loudly. As soon as the white-robed celestial finished speaking, more than 1,000 young cultivators rushed out from the crowd on the square. These young cultivators immediately rushed into the 9 stone doors. Charge! Someone roared furiously, and the tens of thousands of young cultivators on the square immediately surged towards the 9 stone doors like a tidal wave, directly rushing through the stone doors. Ji Yufei was very calm. These 9 stone doors were connected to 9 different heavens. Ying Tianzong actually had such a method. This was somewhat unexpected. One had to know that these were 9 heavens. Although they weren't perfect, the world behind the stone doors was still very vast. As for what was inside, Ji Yufei didn't know. Brother Ji Yu, which one should we enter? Yong Zhon looked at Ji Yufei. At this time, Wang Long and Ling Feng didn't move. They were both watching, but they were both somewhat anxious and fearful. To the hundreds of thousands of people, they were very insignificant. They didn't even know that Lei Dong, Feng Yu, and the others had entered that stone door. It would naturally be best if they could avoid these people. But if they were unlucky and entered the same stone door as Lei Dong or Feng Yu, then it would truly be a tragedy. Whatever. Ji Yufei didn't care at all. The 9 stone doors were 9 different heavens. It didn't matter which world he entered. At this time, he sensed that Lei Dong and Feng Yu hadn't entered the stone door. The number of young cultivators in the square was decreasing. In less than an hour, there were almost no young cultivators left. However, Lei Dong and Feng Yu were both watching Ji Yufei's group. Ji Yufei wasn't anxious, but Lei Dong, Feng Yu, and their subordinates were extremely anxious. Wang Long and Ling Feng were also very anxious. They all wanted to enter the world behind the stone door. Clearly, Lei Dong and Feng Yu were planning the same thing. They were waiting for Ji Yufei's group. If Ji Yufei's group entered the world behind the stone door, they would enter the same one. Preposterous. Wang Long and Ling Feng's expressions became very ugly. Brat, you're dead this time. Lei Dong grinned maliciously at Ji Yufei, looking very pleased with himself. I'd advise you to stay away from me. Ji Yufei glanced at Lei Dong and said disapprovingly. At this time, a figure descended from the sky and landed next to Lei Dong. It was a white-robed immortal. A powerful immortal aura emanated from his body. Wang Long and the others were shocked by the eruption of immortal pressure. They felt as if a mountain was suddenly pressing down on them. They couldn't even straighten their backs. Little brother, this is the guy who injured you. The white-robed immortal looked coldly at Ji Yufei. In the Ying Tian sect, the white-robed disciples were all immortal god-level existences. I really hope that all of you can pass the entrance trial. Lei Zhun looked at Wang Long and the others with a smile that didn't seem like a smile. TCH, who the hell do you think you are? If you want to deal with us, then do it now. I hate lowly people like you the most. Yang Zhon stared at the white-robed immortal and shouted. You. Lei Dong was enraged and was about to unleash even more powerful immortal pressure. Enough. If you don't go in, the stone door is about to close. Chapter 3681. Genius 1 Second Remember Net, providing you with exciting novels to read. In the public square of Ying Tian sect side courtyard, Ji Yufei and Lei Ting were facing each other. Lei Ting was Lei Dong's elder brother. 10 years ago, during Ying Tian sect's entrance trial, he had successfully passed the trial and became a true disciple of Ying Tian sect. Thunder's talent was definitely at the level of a genius. In just 10 years, he had cultivated from the carnate realm to the immortal realm and became the disciple of the white-robed immortal of Ying Tian sect. The hierarchy in Ying Tian sect was very strict. Disciples below the immortal god stage could only wear green robes and were known as Ying Tian sect's green robes disciples. Within the Ying Tian sect's 12 branch sects and 36 monasteries, only immortal gods could wear white robes. Those were the white-robed immortal disciples of the Ying Tian sect. However, amongst the white-robed immortals' disciples, they were divided according to their cultivation bases. Ordinary immortals were the lowest, and above immortals were immortal kings. In the Ying Tian sect, immortal kings were already considered elders. Above the celestial king was the celestial emperor, and the Ying Tian sect side courtyard's master was a celestial emperor. The white-robed immortal on the platform was an immortal king, while the lightning was just an ordinary immortal. Therefore, the lightning didn't dare act presumptuously in front of the white-robed immortal. At this time, the 9 stone doors on the plaza were about to close. Lei Dong and Feng Yu could no longer sit still, because once the stone doors closed, they would lose the qualifications to participate in the trial. Even if they wanted to enter, it would be impossible. Once the stone door was closed, even the dean wouldn't be able to open it. Lei Dong and Feng Yu didn't care too much. They directly rushed towards the 9 stone doors. They didn't go the same way. Lei Dong entered the 3rd stone door while Feng Yu entered the last one, the 9th stone door. Upon seeing this, Ji Yufei's heart skipped a beat. Lei Dong and Feng Yu definitely did not randomly choose a stone door and enter. It seemed that the two of them had already made preparations. The lightning had no intention of entering the stone door. It had already become an immortal, so there was no need for it to take the risk of entering the stone door. The world behind the 9 stone doors was not a treasure trove. It was filled with unfathomable dangers. It was definitely not an easy task to survive for 10 days in such a place. Wang Long and Ling Feng glanced at each other. They then chose a different stone door from Lei Dong and Feng Yu. Wang Long entered the second stone door, while Ling Feng entered the 8th stone door. This way, Wang Long and Ling Feng would not encounter these two fellows. However, Ji Yufei did not care. He directly entered the stone door where Lei Dong was. Seeing this, Yang Zhon also followed Ji Yufei into the 3rd stone door. As soon as Ji Yufei entered the world behind the stone door, he was shocked. He saw that this place was verdant and full of vitality. He discovered that the place he appeared in was a short mountain. There were endless mountain ridges and primitive forests all around. There were no signs of human life. Roar. At this moment, a roar suddenly came from the forest at the foot of the hill. Then, a black shadow jumped out from the forest. Ji Yufei looked and saw that this fierce beast was actually a Qilin beast. This made him indescribably shocked. They had just entered the world behind the stone door and they actually encountered a Qilin beast. This Qilin beast was not a weak fierce beast. It had the blood of a Qilin flowing in its veins. In the primogenitor's realm, the Qilin race was definitely an incomparably powerful race. Although this Qilin beast was not a real Qilin, it was not to be underestimated. One had to know that those who entered the world behind the stone door were all mortals, not immortals. If mortals encountered a Qilin beast, there was only one outcome: to be eaten by the Qilin beast. Brother Ji Yu, what do we do? Seeing a Qilin beast jump out from the forest, Yang Zhon was immediately dumbfounded. Damn, how were people supposed to live? Was this something mortals could handle? Rumble. At this time, the stone door behind Ji Yufei's group had already started to close. It was impossible to leave this place now. It's just a small matter. Ji Yufei said lightly. What? This is just a small matter. Yang Zhon was dumbfounded. Roar. At this time, the Qilin beast at the foot of the short mountain suddenly roared at Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon. It directly leapt up from the ground and pounced towards Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon. What? The Qilin beast actually directly leapt from the foot of the mountain to the peak. Like a small mountain, it smashed down towards Ji Yufei's group. A violent aura spread out from the beast's body. The air was filled with the faint smell of blood. Looks like quite a few people are unlucky. Ji Yufei raised his head to look at the Qilin beast falling from the sky and suddenly laughed. Then, he unhurriedly punched upwards, as if it was a casual punch. We're dead for sure. Yang Zhon looked at the Qilin beast pouncing down from the sky and his face turned pale. However, a muffled sound of impact rang out. The Qilin beast that was like a small mountain was actually blasted into the sky by Ji Yufei's punch. This, Yang Zhon was once again dumbfounded at this scene. He couldn't believe it, it was as if he was dreaming. The powerful Qilin beast was actually blasted into the sky by a single punch from Ji Yufei. How is this possible? Yang Zhon's voice trembled. Nothing is impossible. Ji Yufei indifferently said. At this time, the Qilin beast fell from the sky. Boom. The ground trembled as it directly smashed into the ground, creating a large pit. Yang Zhon looked over and saw that the Qilin beast was already dead. It was killed by a single punch from Ji Yufei. It was truly unbelievable that this Qilin beast was actually killed by Ji Yufei. This was a Qilin beast, an incomparably powerful Qilin beast. Furthermore, the Qilin beast's defense was absolutely astonishing. Its thick scales were impenetrable by swords and spears. Even a Xiantian expert would only end up being eaten by this Qilin beast. Even existences that had surpassed the Xiantian realm wouldn't be able to kill this beast so easily. This kind of trial is practically a 9 out of 10 chance of survival. Yang Zhon was incomparably terrified. It's not that serious. I think the reason why we appeared here should be random. Before us, there shouldn't have been many people who appeared here. Ji Yufei said. What? Yang Zhon was indescribably shocked. Look, there's practically no trace of people around here. If tens of thousands of people had come here before, this scene wouldn't be like this. Ji Yufei looked around and said. So it's like this. Yang Zhon also discovered that the vegetation around the mountain had no traces of being disturbed. This place was too clean. Let's go. Ji Yufei said. Since they had come here, they might as well take a stroll around this world and see if they could find anything interesting. Of course, there weren't many things that could pique his interest. Well, should we find a place to hide and come back here 10 days later? Yang Zhon asked. There's no need to go through so much trouble. When we passed through the stone gate, some kind of imprint was left on our bodies. 10 days later, we will automatically return to this world's entrance. Ji Yufei said. The secret of the 9 stone gates wasn't too obvious to Ji Yufei. Ying Tianzong's method wasn't very brilliant. The world behind the 3rd stone gate was very vast. Ying Tianzong's courtyard used the stone gates to send the youths to various corners of this world. This was the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial. In truth, this kind of trial was very simple. Those who survived could become disciples of Ying Tianzong. If they died or were crippled, they would be mercilessly eliminated. This was the cruelty of the primogenitor's realm. Every 10 years, countless young human cultivators would die in the Ying Tianzong's entrance trial. However, even though they knew this, countless young human cultivators still went to the Ying Tian sect to participate in this cruel trial. At this time, in the other trial lands, countless young cultivators encountered all kinds of dangers. Some cultivators died, while others were lucky enough to survive. Roar. In the 2nd trial land behind the 2nd stone gate, furious roars came from a valley. Wang Long was swinging his saber as he fought against a pack of wolves. He was very unlucky. After entering the 2nd trial land, he appeared in a valley, and inside the valley was a wolf's den. Wang Long was surrounded by over 100 wolves. He could only fight them with his life on the line. If he didn't have a spirit-grade saber, he would have already been torn to pieces by the wolves. Kill. Wang Long cleaved the fierce wolf that was pouncing on him into 2 halves, and directly rushed out of the valley. Saber light flashed and the wolves fell at Wang Long's feet. At this time, Wang Long's entire body was drenched in wolf blood, and even his hair was dripping blood. Kill. Die for me. Wang Long went crazy because he knew that he only had 2 endings today. One was to live, and the other was to live. He didn't want to die, so he could only fight with his life on the line. In the end, Wang Long successfully killed his way out of the valley. In the 8th trial land, Ling Feng wasn't so lucky. He encountered a group of evil people. Not only was he robbed, but he also had one of his legs crippled, turning him into a cripple. Those people didn't kill Ling Feng, but that was no different from killing him. Even if he survived, he would lose the chance to become a disciple of Ying Tianzong after leaving the 8th trial land. In the 3rd trial land, Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon arrived in front of a valley. A thick smell of blood wafted out of the valley. Ji Yufei frowned and directly walked into the valley. Yang Zhon was 100 times unwilling, but he had no choice but to follow Ji Yufei into the valley. His intuition told him that he would be very safe with Ji Yufei. Later on, Yang Zhon realized how lucky he was. Meeting Ji Yufei was something he could brag about for the rest of his life. He was incomparably proud of himself. Ling Feng and Wang Long, on the other hand, were filled with regret. Chapter 3682. Ying Tian sect's courtyard's 9 great trial lands had already closed. All the young cultivators who came to participate in Ying Tian sect's entrance trial had already entered these 9 great trial lands. Not a single one of them had given up on this incomparably cruel trial. At this time, within the 3rd trial, Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon had arrived outside a mountain valley. The smell of blood. Ji Yufei frowned. A thick smell of blood was actually coming from the mountain valley. That made him a bit curious, so he directly walked inside. Yang Zhon saw Ji Yufei walk inside and could only follow behind Ji Yufei. This is, as soon as they entered the mountain valley, Ji Yufei saw corpses on the ground. They were human corpses, and they were all desiccated corpses, as if they had been sucked dry of their flesh and blood. What's going on? Young Jean was quite frightened by this scene. These corpses all had a large hole in the top of their skulls. Their deaths were extremely horrifying. "Let's go in and see what's going on," Ji Fei calmly said. These corpses were all the young cultivators who had entered the third trial. Why had they died so miserably in this mountain valley? That was what had piqued Ji Fei's curiosity. The deeper Ji Fei and Yang Zhon went into the mountain valley, the more corpses they saw, and the stronger the smell of blood was. Along the way, Ji Fei estimated that he had already seen over 1,000 corpses. These corpses all had a large hole in their skulls. Their essence and spiritual energy had been sucked dry, turning them into desiccated corpses. These corpses didn't have the slightest trace of essence energy. Could there be a mysterious life form living in this mountain valley? The mountain valley was filled with jagged rocks and there were very few trees. But there were many skeletons scattered on the ground, and there were even more new corpses on top of them. How is this a trial? This is practically suicide. Yang Zhon was incomparably alarmed. He didn't dare stray too far from Ji Fei. His intuition told him that this mountain valley was filled with unknown dangers. But he couldn't figure out why these people had died here. Hadn't they been thrown into the various regions of this trial? Ji Fei didn't know what was going on. At this moment, Ji Fei suddenly raised his head and looked up into the sky. He saw something falling rapidly from the sky. That is. Ji Fei's pupils shrank. It was a corpse. To be exact, it was the corpse of a young cultivator who had just died. However, this corpse was not a dried corpse. A dull sound came from the depths of the valley, and the corpse fell directly into the depths of the valley. Ji Fei vaguely saw a black shadow disappear into the horizon. Even with his cultivation, he couldn't see what it was, which surprised him. Even Ji Fei couldn't clearly see what that thing in the sky was. Yang Zhon, a mortal who wasn't even an immortal, couldn't even see that thing in the sky. Yang Zhon didn't sense the existence of that mysterious thing in the sky at all. Ji Fei didn't say anything. He just paused for a moment before continuing forward. There were more and more corpses on the ground, which made him feel incredulous. Could it be that in the third trial, there was a mysterious life form that specifically hunted and killed the young cultivators who were participating in the trial? No one could answer Ji Fei. After turning a corner, Ji Fei and Yang Zhon were shocked by the scene that appeared in front of them. There was a huge nest in front of them. It was a nest made entirely out of bones. The nest was thousands of zhong tall and was shaped like a bird's nest. However, this bird's nest was made out of bones. What kind of thing is this nest? Yang Zhon was dumbfounded, his voice trembling. This was his first time seeing such a shocking thing. A nest made of bones that was 1,000 meters tall. Even if he told others, no one would believe him. At this time, the nest was surrounded by dried corpses. There were at least tens of thousands of them. Seeing this scene, even Ji Fei couldn't help being shocked. It had to be known that there were only 10 to 20,000 young cultivators who entered the third trial. Could it be that all the young cultivators who entered the third trial had been annihilated? Ari, Ji Fei sighed. He didn't think that the Ying sect's trial would be so cruel. It was much crueler than he had imagined. These young cultivators were the elites of the human race. Many of them definitely had the potential to become immortals, but now, they had all died in this trial. At this time, there was a sudden air-piercing sound in the sky. A black shadow directly swooped down from the sky, trying to grab Ji Fei and Yang Zhon. "Brother Ji, be careful," Yang Zhon exclaimed. Swish! An incomparably sharp sword light suddenly rushed out from Ji Fei's body. The sword light flashed through the sky, and the mysterious life form that swooped down from the sky was actually cleaved in half. The mysterious life form's corpse fell to the ground, and a nauseating stench filled the air. Ji Fei looked and saw that the mysterious life form that was cleaved in half by his sword was actually something similar to a rotten corpse, but it had bone wings on its back. Dead soul. Yang Zhon was shocked. "You've seen a dead soul before?" Ji Fei was a little surprised. One had to know that Yang Zhon wasn't an immortal and was just a mortal. As a mortal, if he were to encounter a dead soul, it would definitely be a dead end. If Yang Zhon had seen a dead soul before, he might still be alive. I haven't seen it before, but I've heard of it before. Yang Zhon looked at the corpse of the dead soul nervously. Could this bone nest be a nest of dead souls? At this time, a tentacle silently extended out from the bone nest and pierced at the top of Ji Yufei's head with extreme speed. Swish! With a thought, another sword light rushed out from Ji Yufei's body. The sword light flashed, and that tentacle fell from the sky. In the next moment, an ear-piercing sound came from the bone nest. This sound was like something rubbing against each other, and it was a bone-chilling sound. After that, the entire bone nest shook. At the same time, black shadows flew over from all directions, enveloping the entire valley. Those were countless terrifying dead souls with bone wings, malevolent faces, and a rotten stench. Seeing this scene, Yang Zhon was dumbfounded. I'm dead for sure this time. Why didn't I leave just now? Yang Zhon was filled with regret. Now, he couldn't even leave even if he wanted to. At this time, under Ji Yufei's gaze, a huge monster was crawling out of the bone nest. It was a monster covered in tentacles. An extremely powerful death chi spread out from its body. How can I live like this? Ji Yufei found it hard to believe that there was actually an extremely powerful dead soul in this valley. The cultivation base of this dead soul had probably surpassed the immortal Emperor realm. No wonder those cultivators who participated in the entrance trial were hunted down. The tentacle monster let out a cry towards the countless dead souls in the sky. Then, the densely packed dead souls in the sky pounced towards Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon. The undead spirits blotted out the sky and covered the earth as they swooped down. This scene caused Yang Zhon to be dumbfounded. With so many undead spirits attacking together, it was likely that they would lose their lives here. Just when Yang Zhon thought that it was over, Ji Yufei made his move. Rays of extremely sharp sword light rushed out from his body. Wherever the sword light passed, the dead souls fell from the sky. Very quickly, the ground was filled with the corpses of the dead souls. Yang Zhon didn't think that Ji Yufei would be this powerful. He was actually able to block the attack of countless dead souls by himself. Swish! One of the tentacles suddenly stabbed towards Yang Zhon, its speed reaching the extreme. Yang Zhon was startled and hastily dodged to the side. The tentacle also retracted. 9 heaven punishing swords. Without hesitation, Ji Yufei displayed this ultimate killing technique. In the next moment, a terrifying killing intent spread out from his body. Even Yang Zhon, who was beside him, felt as though he had fallen into an ice cave. The 9 immortal sword lights burst out with a strong killing power and obliterated upwards. Countless dead spirits fell from the sky like dumplings. This was an incomparably crazy scene. Very quickly, the dead souls in the sky were all killed by Ji Yufei. The ground was covered with a thick layer of dead souls' corpses. That tentacle monster's countless tentacles wrapped towards Ji Yufei. Ji Yufei still used the punishing Heaven 9 swords, and that tentacle monster was instantly killed. It seemed like something big was happening in the third trial. This made the higher-ups of Yingtian sect's courtyard feel uneasy. The stone door was already closed, and they couldn't enter the third trial. After Ji Yufei killed the tentacle monster, he jumped onto the bone nest. He saw that the bone nest was filled with corpses, human corpses. Several small tentacle monsters were devouring the flesh and bones of these corpses. He waved his right hand, and several sword lights immediately rushed out from his hand, killing the few small tentacle monsters in the bone nest. That is, Ji Yufei's gaze was suddenly attracted by something in the bone nest. It was a bead. To be precise, it was a bead that gathered endless death chi. What is this? Ji Yufei waved his right hand, and the bead in the bone nest flew up and fell into his hand. He carefully observed this bead, and finally came to a conclusion. This bead was definitely worthy of being called the Death God's bead. This Death God's bead was only the size of an adult's thumb, but the death chi contained within it was absolutely massive. Once this death chi exploded, all life within a radius of tens of thousands of miles would be cut off. This is a good item. It's most suitable for swindling people. Ji Yufei carefully kept this Death God's bead. Such an item would definitely come in handy in the future. Just as Jiyu Fei took the death god's bead, Yang Zhon, who was under the bone nest, suddenly exclaimed. Jiyu Fei quickly turned around and was delighted to see that Yang Zhon was actually being chased by a small tentacle monster. Chapter 3683. In a valley in the third trial of Ying Tian sect's side courtyard, Jiyu Fei displayed his prowess and directly killed countless dead spirits. He even killed the Lord of Dead Spirits in the bone nest. Although the undead spirit lord was powerful, it was nothing in front of Jiyu Fei. There were actually a few smaller undead spirit lords in the undead spirit lord's bone nest, which surprised Jiyu Fei. They should be the undead spirit lord's clones. Jiyu Fei naturally wouldn't let the undead spirit lord's clones go, so he killed them with a single slash. However, one of the undead spirit lord's clones had left the bone nest at some point and was chasing after Yang Zhon. After the undead spirit lord was killed by Jiyu Fei, the power of its clones would be greatly reduced. However, this wasn't something Yang Zhon could deal with. The tentacle monster pounced on Yang Zhon, then directly bit at him. I'm dead. Yang Zhon thought that it was impossible for him to escape. He closed his eyes and waited for death. But at this critical moment, a sword light flashed through the air. The tentacle monster on Yang Zhon's body was immediately split in half, and a putrid stench of blood splattered all over Yang Zhon. Yang Zhon was both surprised and delighted to have escaped death and hastily crawled up from the ground. Many thanks for saving my life, brother Jiyu. Yang Zhon cupped his hands to Jiyu Fei. It's just a small matter. Jiyu Fei waved his hand. It might be a small matter to brother Jiyu, but to this little brother, it's my life. Yang Zhon hastily said. Jiyu Fei smiled non-committally and didn't say anything. Let's go. Jiyu Fei put away the death god's pearl and walked out of the valley. This place had already become hell, and there were dead spirit corpses everywhere in the depths of the valley. The entire valley was shrouded in an aura of death. Being able to obtain the death god's pearl was a pleasant surprise for Jiyu Fei. Entering this valley and killing all the undead spirits wasn't in vain. However, just as Jiyu Fei and Yang Zhon came out of the valley, they were blocked by a group of people outside the valley entrance. This group of people came with ill intentions. Hand over everything on you and scram. The leader of the group was a tall, muscular cultivator who looked even stronger than an ox. He shouted at Jiyu Fei with a dozen of his men following behind him. Jiyu Fei laughed. These guys actually dared to rob him. You bastards, get lost. Yang Zhon walked up from behind Jiyu Fei, sweeping his eyes over the crowd before finally resting his gaze on the burly man. Haha, this fellow actually told us to scram? Then should we scram or not? When the leader of the group heard Yang Zhon's words, he laughed without restraint. He didn't put these two guys in his eyes at all. Yang Zhon wasn't even a Xiantian realm cultivator, and this brat didn't have a Xiantian realm cultivation either. The muscular man in the lead was very confident. How could these two brats be a match for him? When a Xiantian cultivator fought against a Hutian cultivator, it was simply a crushing defeat. You dare to tell us to scram? You're courting death. A tall and skinny fellow jumped out from behind the muscular man. He was holding a long saber in his hand. This long saber was actually a spirit tool. Ari, I originally wanted to spare your lives, but you really don't know any better. There's no other way, I can only kill you. The muscular man in the lead shook his head and sighed. Who the hell do you think you are? You actually dare to act pretentious in front of our brother Jiyu? Yang Zhon angrily said. These fellows simply didn't know how powerful brother Jiyu was. If they did, they would have long since pissed their pants in terror and begged for mercy. This fellow is the most loathsome. Kill him first, then kill that brat. The muscular man directly ordered his men behind him. Yes, boss. The dozen young cultivators behind the muscular man immediately raised their weapons and surrounded Jiyu Fei and Yang Zhon. I'll give you one more chance. Hurry up and scram, otherwise I don't mind killing you. Jiyu Fei placed his hands behind his back and calmly looked at the young cultivators surrounding him. Ha. When the muscular man and his men heard Jiyu Fei's words, they all burst into laughter. It was as if they had heard the funniest joke in the world. This little brat didn't even have a Xiantian cultivation, Yet he dared to speak such arrogant words. He was simply overestimating himself. Hurry up and scram. Our brother Gu's words are absolute. If he says he will kill you, then he will definitely kill you. Yang Zhon shouted at the muscular man and his men. Ayo, I'm so scared. The muscular man pretended to be afraid and said, we are also very scared. Come and kill us, haha. The muscular man's men also began to mock and ridicule Yang Zhon. Sigh. Yang Zhon helplessly shook his head and retreated to the side. Go and kill them. The muscular man in the lead roared and pounced towards Ji Yufei. The copper hammer in his hand directly smashed down on Ji Yufei's head. The other young cultivators also attacked. Some attacked Ji Yufei, some attacked Yang Zhon. They only had one goal, and that was to kill them. However, a scene that scared them out of their wits appeared. They saw Ji Yufei wave his right sleeve. All the young cultivators attacking him, including the muscular man in the lead, were also sent flying by the power that erupted from Ji Yufei's sleeve. How is this possible? The group of bandits were all dumbfounded. The other party had just waved his sleeve and they were all annihilated. At this time, the muscular man in the lead finally realized that he had kicked an iron plate. He had misjudged this black-robed youth to be so powerful. All of them vomited blood and fell to the ground, unable to stand up. Can't even withstand a single blow. Ji Yufei clasped his hands behind his back and looked down at these fellows. Senior, please spare us. At this time, the fiendish leader hurriedly begged Ji Yufei for mercy. Didn't you just say that you wanted to kill me? Come, I will stand here and let you chop me. Ji Yufei calmly looked at the muscular man in the lead. No. Senior, please let this lowly one go. The muscular man in the lead begged. I told you to scram, but you refused. Now you want to scram? There is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Yang Zhon disdainfully looked at the muscular man in the lead. Senior, just treat it as a fart and let this lowly one go. The muscular man in the lead ignored Yang Zhon and bitterly begged Ji Yufei, hoping that Ji Yufei would let him go. However, how could Ji Yufei let them go? So much nonsense. Ji Yufei waved his right hand and a sword light shot out, directly killing the muscular man in the lead. The sword light then made a turn in the air and killed another young cultivator. The remaining young cultivators were scared silly by this scene. This guy actually dared to kill them. Run. The remaining young cultivators only had one thought in their minds, and that was to run. The young cultivators immediately scattered and ran for their lives. However, Ji Yufei's sword light quickly moved through the air and killed all of the fleeing young cultivators. I've given you everything on them. Ji Yufei said to Yang Zhon at the side. Really, give it all to me. Yang Zhon didn't expect Ji Yufei to not want any spoils of war. Didn't that mean he had struck it rich? He hastily thanked Ji Yufei and charged over to search the muscular man in the lead. He was the leader of this group, so he naturally had many good things on him. Yang Zhon's guess was correct. He really did find quite a few good things on him, including weapons and medicinal pills. Haha, I'm so happy. Yang Zhon roared with laughter. Ji Yufei couldn't help shaking his head as he watched from the side. He simply watched as Yang Zhon searched through the corpses of these people one by one. These were all things mortals could use. There wasn't even a single immortal item. How miserable were the humans in the primogenitor world? An hour later, Yang Zhon had taken out all the good stuff from the corpses of those people. To Yang Zhon, he had really struck it rich. From these people, he actually found 3 spiritual weapons, more than 10 ordinary weapons, and some pills. Let's go. Ji Yufei saw Yang Zhon put away the spoils of war and walked towards the opposite mountain ridge. Yang Zhon naturally followed closely behind Ji Yufei. Only by following Ji Yufei would he have meat to eat. Wang Long and Ling Feng were really stupid. Right after Ji Yufei and Yang Zhon left, 2 figures suddenly descended from the sky and landed on the ground. Who killed them? One of the 2 was a handsome youth with a frown. How would I know? The other one was a dark-skinned black man. He said in a bad mood. This person should be a sword cultivator. They were killed by a sword. The black man's expression was solemn as he looked at the sword mark on the neck of one of the corpses. That unlucky fellow's neck had almost been severed. Someone had actually started a massacre here. This was something no one wanted to see. The two of them walked into the valley. Soon, cries of alarm rang out from within the valley. In the next moment, two figures rushed out of the valley as if they were fleeing. The two of them seemed to have been scared out of their wits. They didn't even look back as they fled in panic. At this time, Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon were walking towards a place outside the mountain ridge. Jiu Fei sensed that a place was flourishing with people. That was the aura of mortals. It looked like a large number of humans had gathered there. What were they doing there? Soon, Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon walked out of the mountain ridge. The place where people gathered outside the mountain ridge was actually a city that had existed for God knows how long. Seeing this city, even Jiu Fei was surprised. It had to be known that this was just a training ground for Ying Tian sect's side courtyard. Could it be that there were people living here for a long time? No one could answer Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon. Looking at the humans entering and exiting the city, Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon's expressions changed. What's going on here? Chapter 3684. Were Ying Tianzong's methods really so heaven-defying? There was actually a city in this trial world where people were cultivating. Let alone Yang Zhon, even Jiu Fei couldn't help but feel moved. It had to be known that if this was a broken world, there would be no benefits for cultivators to cultivate here. Because such a world didn't have a complete grand Tao, it was impossible to become a true expert by cultivating in such a place. Since ancient times, extreme Tao Supremes had always been born from a perfect world. For a broken world to give birth to an immortal God was already a miracle. Could it be that this place is actually a perfect world? Jiu Fei muttered to himself. Brother Jiu, what's a perfect world? Yang Zhon was baffled. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. Jiu Fei shook his head. Yang Zhon wasn't even an immortal god. He was just a mortal. How could he know the mysteries of this world? Yang Zhon wanted to ask more, but he held back in the end. At this time, Jiu Fei was already walking toward the ancient city. Yang Zhon hastily chased after him. The city wasn't very big, but it wasn't small either. When they got closer, Jiu Fei and the others found that this city could only hold a few tens of thousands of people. The city walls were very tall, almost 300 meters. At this time, the ancient city was absolutely packed with people. People were constantly rushing towards the ancient city from all directions. Outside the ancient city gate, there was a long queue to enter the city. Some of them were actually the young cultivators who had entered this world to undergo trials. But at this time, whether they were newcomers or natives, they were all in a hurry to enter the city. This baffled Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon. What's going on with these people? Yang Zhon walked forward and asked a dark-skinned middle-aged man, Senior, why are you in such a hurry to enter the city? What, you don't know? The hunter-like middle-aged man looked at Yang Zhon as if he was looking at a monster. Should I know? Yang Zhon was startled. Are you also outsiders? The middle-aged man suddenly thought of something and his expression became unsightly. It seemed he didn't like outsiders. The beast wave is coming, enter the city if you want to live. The middle-aged man said impatiently. Then, he ignored Yang Zhon and hurried to line up to enter the city. Beast wave. Yang Zhon's expression immediately changed. A beast tide had erupted in this place. No one knew better than Yang Zhon how terrifying the beast tide was, because he had experienced it himself. Countless savage beasts swept across the mountain ridges like a tide, ruthlessly destroying everything in their path. Brother Jiu, let's hurry up and queue up to enter the city. A beast tide has broken out in this place. Yang Zhon quickly returned to Jiu Fei's side and anxiously said to Jiu Fei. Really? Jiu Fei was still very calm, as if the beast tide had nothing to do with him. Of course, with Jiu Fei's cultivation level, the beast tide, which seemed extremely terrifying to others, was completely ignored by him. It did not arouse his interest at all. Since everyone was in a hurry to enter the city, then he might as well go in and take a look. Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon also joined the queue. But outsiders like Jiu Fei and Yang Zhon were loathed by the natives of this region. Needless to say, those trial takers had definitely done many heinous things here, offending countless natives in this world. You want to enter the city without spirit herbs and spirit crystals? Scram! Suddenly, a shout came from the front. Then, Jiu Fei saw an old man in ragged clothes being pushed out and falling to the ground. Old man, if you want to enter the city, then bring out 1/2 kilogram of spirit crystals or a spirit herb. Otherwise, you can just stay outside and feed the beasts. A cultivator wearing black armor and holding a spear viciously glared at the old man on the ground. Lord Xian, please, if I don't enter the city, I definitely won't be able to live. The old man begged, but the soldiers guarding the city didn't budge. You want to enter the city without spirit crystals and spirit herbs? Bah! The soldier kicked the old man and walked back to the city gate while cursing. No one outside the city gate dared to say anything, let alone stand up for the old man. Because of the beast tide, if they didn't enter the ancient city to hide, they would be eaten by the beasts and not even their bones would be left. The old man walked away in despair. You still need to pay the entrance fee? Yang Zhon couldn't help but frown when he saw this. Old man, come back. At this time, a young cultivator stood out and called out to the old man. The old man turned and looked suspiciously at the young cultivator. Little brother, why did you call out to this old man? Come, here is 1/2 kilogram of spirit crystals, take it and enter the city. The young cultivator stuffed a small bag into the old man's hands. Little brother, this. The old man looked at the young cultivator in disbelief. Take it, I still have more, don't worry. The young cultivator said. This. The old man hesitated for a while, but in the end, he still took the bag with 1/2 kilogram of spirit crystals. Little brother, what's your name? This old man will forever be indebted to you. If there's a chance, this old man will definitely repay you. The old man was so excited that his body was trembling. This guy is stupid, he actually gave that old man 1/2 kilogram of spirit crystals. 1/2 kilogram of spirit crystals, that should be enough to exchange for a basic cultivation technique. This guy's head must have been kicked by a donkey. The crowd discussed among themselves. Jiu Fei looked at the young cultivator and couldn't help but nod. There weren't many good people like this in the entire cultivation world. Old man, my name is Feng Liang, I don't need to thank you. The young man smiled and continued to line up. A good man. The old man said with a trembling voice. At this time, the line kept moving forward, and not long after, Yang Zhon and Jiu Fei arrived at the city gate. Someone had set up a checkpoint at the city gate, and there were a dozen or so soldiers in black armor standing guard there, collecting entrance fees from the people passing by. 1/2 kilogram of spirit crystals, or a spiritual herb. Just as they reached the city gate, Yang Zhon was stopped by a soldier. We still need spirit crystals and spiritual herbs to enter the city. Yang Zhon glared at the soldier and said angrily, Brat, are you trying to cause trouble? The dozen soldiers immediately brandished their spears and surrounded Yang Zhon. The leader of the soldiers glared at Yang Zhon with a cold expression and said fiercely, This daddy wants to cause trouble, so what? Yang Zhon originally wanted to retreat, but when he thought about how powerful Jiu Fei was, his courage immediately grew. Damn, this daddy has Jiu Fei backing me up, why should I be afraid of these trash? The soldiers guarding the city gate were just some ordinary cultivators, and only the leader of the soldiers was a true expert. Even so, he wasn't that strong, and his cultivation was slightly lower than Yang Zhon's.